All right, welcome back, everybody. We got a new setup, so hopefully everything sounds okay. This is the first podcast with the new setup. Well, the new setup. You guys, God damn it. I'm terrible at these. Anyways, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Shooter Lube, America's best gun care system. With military-grade cleaning solvent, our new technology has you cleaning your gun better than ever. It's the Shooter Lube military-grade weapons cleaning solvent is simply the best. Okay, that's getting old. Anyways, it's odorless. There's no water. It fully evaporates, leaves no residue, no hazardous ingredients per the EPA. Has a high flash point, non-corrosive, does not freeze, and it's non-flammable. The Extreme Weapons Oil is the second stage. It's biodegradable, non-flammable, non-toxic. It's 100% synthetic. Low odor, non-staining, offers rust and corrosion protection, and it reduces wear and friction. Shooter Lube is offering free shipping on all orders over $35 with 100% money-back satisfaction guarantee. Go to shooterlube.com and join the revolution by using promo code SINGER to save yourself 10%. All right, my guest for today is Will Maravelas. I think I finally pronounced his name correctly. It's been a long-running joke on the local scene, in the local industry here for a long time. Nobody's ever known how to pronounce this guy's name properly, and I think I finally figured it out. I believe it's Maravelas. So Will Maravelas is a musician I've known for a very long time, guitar player for Coffin Right and Plague of Stars, among a bunch of other bands over time. Those are the two he's rocking with right now. He's also the owner of 1459 Studios. I'll let him kind of tell you guys what it is, but it's a pretty cool idea. I like what he's doing. Wanted to have him on, wanted to talk about his journey. So we'll keep this one short with no further ado. Actually, you know what? Son of a bitch, I almost forgot. If you guys haven't already, please, thank you for those of you that have signed up. For those of you that haven't, please go to patreon.com/JaredSingerLive and sign up for our Patreon. You can either just do like one donation or you can do a monthly subscription, whatever the fuck they call it. There's different tiers. You can go as low as $3 a month. There is extra content that we have been working on, and it's going to start going up there very soon, actually, including ad-free versions of the podcast. And if you haven't already, if you're just a regular watcher, thank you. Thank you for your loyalty. If you haven't already, hit the red subscribe button. With no further ado, welcome to the podcast, my good buddy, my old friend, Will Maravelas. If it's like soft rock or pop.
Right.
Because I've heard some pretty shit drummers lay down some solid sounding drum tracks.
Yeah.
But with the shit I'm doing, if I'm not tight, then it shows.
Yeah.
And it bleeds into the music, and you can obviously tell. So, yeah, I'm not there yet. I got a lot of fucking work to do, dude, but that's kind of the main motivation, because I definitely didn't need this beast for the fucking podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
In case the viewers don't know, my guest today, cheers to you, brother. It's bad luck to cheers with water, but we let that pass
that's all right.
on the podcast for guys that don't drink. Will Maravelas. Nobody knows how to pronounce your name correctly. That is how you pronounce it.
That is correct.
Maravelas.
I've gotten so used to people screwing it up that I'm just like, whatever. I don't even correct people anymore.
Right.
You know? So
yeah, it's a tough one. It's not a tough name, but it's been misspelled so many times and mispronounced so many times, people just gave up.
Yeah, and I gave up correcting them because it's just like one of those things where people just go like, is it pronounced marvelous? And sometimes they're being sarcastic, and sometimes they're just being, stupid, for lack of a better way to put it. Yeah, and just sitting here going like, no, that's not correct, but whatever, dude, I don't really care. If it helps you get some sleep at night, I'm fine with it. I really don't care. So
I wanted to get you on the podcast since the very beginning.
Yeah, we've talked about it for a while.
Yeah, but I knew because we had talks in the past that you had some health issues from your past. Not like, oh my God, fucking shit, but just enough to where when the pandemic happened, I already knew not to ask and reach out.
Right.
Because I knew it was going to be a no for a long time.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because you're one of those dudes that definitely, I feel, is doing it the right way. And what I mean by doing it is the music industry, right? You're doing the music industry the right way, meaning you found a niche for yourself. Now, this is also after years of hard work and networking and failure and working a regular job, still what I would call a music business peripheral, meaning Guitar Center. Right. It's a regular job, but at least you're still fucking with the music industry every day at your job.
Right.
That helped a lot. But you carved out a way for you to pay your bills, essentially. The way John Wheeler and I say it is monetizing your personality.
Right.
And the other way is just doing music. You know, you basically pay your bills being you, doing some version of music. So the biggest thing you have going on is you, what was it, a year or two ago, finally pulled the trigger and bought this building or whatever.
Right.
Did you buy it? And
so
I don't want to blow the load. I want to kind of like step into this slowly. So did you buy this building or did you acquire the lease for the entire building?
So so through all the networking and the lovely facts of
if anyone's confused, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So I've been doing recording for in some fashion for the better part of the last 18 years, and obviously I worked at somebody else's studio for a while. Then I moved up here, worked at somebody else's studio for a while. And then I went into a partnership with a friend of mine, did that for a little bit while, rented at a couple different locations, all that good shit. Did that for the better part of the last 10 years. Fast forward to about 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, I was looking at buying a building, doing a long-term lease on a building, buying a warehouse situation, putting like $200,000 into a build-out, whatever it was.
Just whatever you were kind of exploring all options.
All options, yeah. Gotcha. I knew that my current situation where I had been for 10 years, the owner of the building was retiring, and he was the person that I had the relationship with, and his kids were going to be taking it over, and I knew damn well the rent that I was paying there was not what I should have been paying, meaning I should have been paying a hell of a lot more. And as soon as his kids got wind of that, it'd be all over.
Sure.
I would have to be paying like $300-400 more a month, if not more.
Right.
To the point where it would be difficult to justify keeping the space. So I started looking around, looking at different situations, got really close to a couple situations that just didn't pan out.
And these are just random options in that buying a building.
Yep. Yeah.
Renovating, leasing, all of it.
Yeah. All things considered, the build out cost, the rental cost, the overhead,
and
all that shit.
What were some of the reasons those fell through? That's another thing I was curious about.
Oh,
so like
that's fun.
somebody else offer more, and we don't have to go into detail. I don't want to bog the story down, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm just throwing out some common sense hypotheticals. You got outbid, maybe didn't pass inspection,
sure,
major some weird shit. Anything you can whatever.
All things considered, the one that really stands out is we were going to
be like, what's the
one?
One
the one that stands out is we basically had an agreement. There was nothing on paper. It was a verbal agreement. Prices were decided. The build out cost, the split was decided between the building owners. The 5-year lease was decided. Everything was good to go. Everything was verbal. Everything was done. Literally the day that we were going to go put things on paper, the other owner of the building said, wait a second, I have to look this over. So it was like a family that owned this building and threw a wrench in the whole thing and said, no, we got to do this. No, we got to do this. And so after weeks of building up to this moment, now having the other owner come back to me and say, no, we need to do this. I said, I'm out.
So in sales, we call that sitting a one leg.
Yeah.
So sitting a sale is sitting down and trying to make the sale. And a one leg is when you only have one of the primary decision makers there.
Right.
So that could be, if there's two business owners, you need them both there. If I was selling siding, windows, or roofing, I needed the husband and the wife there. And if any time I ever got the hint that there was another decision maker not there,
right,
any really high-end sales guy immediately pulls out because you can't complete the deal once that other person goes and tries to sell for you. Right. So it's like, oh, the wife is into it, and then she's, no, it's up to me. And then she goes to the husband, and the husband's like, no,
yep,
we're going with this company. And then she calls you back and goes, sorry, I know I told you I was going to have you do it, but my husband wants to go with this other company. It's like, I should have had the husband there, right? That sounds like what had happened to you. Now, did you know there was another decision maker?
No, I actually...
That's where it gets tricky, is when you don't know any better.
And And shame on my realtor for that, which I'll leave the name of the company out of it, because I did hire an actual realtor to help me like find a situation, and it was buy a building, rent a building, lease a long term, whatever it was. And he didn't know that, and because he didn't do his homework on it. So the funny thing is I actually strung them along for a week, and just kind of said, okay, well, send me all the paperwork as you see it. And then they sent me all the new stuff, and had a conference call and said, okay, cool. Well, I can't make that conference call like 10 minutes before the conference call, and that whole idea, because I wanted to waste their time too. So finally, like 2 weeks of doing this.
You're a vindictive little fuck.
I am. I was so pissed at that point. I'm like, you've wasted enough of my time. I'm going to waste some of yours and cost you some money, because it did set me back. I hired another realtor and the whole nine and did that whole thing. And so I actually fired my realtor over the phone with this company. So it was one of those fun situations. So. Yeah, it was a vindictive move, but I kind of felt I felt it justified the situation, and I had multiple problems with that realtor previously, so I should have fired him earlier. But
so how did you end up finding the building that you did finally settle on?
So when I was looking, and I kind of started from square one, and literally I canned this guy like 2 weeks before that. I'm looking again, so I'm starting to make the phone calls myself again instead of having an actual realtor. And the funny thing is, as soon as I took it over myself, it suddenly like seemed like I was gaining traction. And it wasn't because I knew what the hell I was doing more or anything like that. Actually, further from the truth, to be honest. But just the situation of being the person making the phone call and being the person actually like doing the deal and doing the business. I made a phone call over to the Hams Brewery, and I have no problem with people knowing who my business partner is. If anybody really wants to dig into it, they can find out pretty easily. But
thank you for admitting that. Jesus, people are so secretive nowadays, and it's like, dude, if anybody cares,
go look it up. I don't care.
It's going to take 30 minutes by a half-assed internet sleuth.
Yeah. So if somebody really wants to look it up, fine. It's like, so I call over to the Hams Brewery building, and the owner of the company. The owner of that building actually owns several other properties in the Twin Cities as well. I think his family has 20 or 30 different buildings. So his whole thing is he finds businesses that have a good business plan, that have a good structure, that have a good, basically an actual way to make a living, and he invests capital into their business. And that's what he does. So I call over to the Hams Brewery. He owns the building. I was talking to his assistant, had no idea.
Did you know him at this time?
No, I didn't. I didn't know him at all.
This is how you met this guy?
This is how I met him, yeah. And I was talking to his assistant. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea I was even talking to his assistant. I just assumed it was somebody at the Hams Brewery who answers the phone calls for want ads or whatever, wherever it gets forwarded to. And she goes, well, I'm going to have you talk to Dan. And I'm just sitting here going, I don't know who the hell Dan is. Okay, cool. I'll talk to Dan. Who's Dan? And so we get together, and he comes over to my current space. I show him around, and he flat out asked me, because at the time I had my studio, which was a 3-room studio, and then I had 4 rehearsal spaces. And I took him. You had already moved on
from the mindset of, God, this is fucking loud. You'd already moved on from the mindset of just you needing a rehearsal space in a studio for you to record. You had already kind of picked up this idea of having more than one room and then subletting that out to other musicians. Right, yeah. Like the studio that I was in was kind of like, the whole idea is I could get a better deal if I rent more space, and then I can help pay a little bit of my overhead by renting to my friends. That was literally the thought process. Yeah, like a rental property. Right. This is brilliant. Yeah. And it was a situation where you go, hey, music space and rehearsal space it's kind of at a premium, and a lot of the spaces are, they have issues. Parking's challenging, stairs are challenging, security is challenging, freight elevators don't work. Yeah, the bathroom isn't as nice as you'd like it to, whatever you need to. So or even just garbage, or fucking meth heads, or heroin addicts, or fucking. We've all been there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've all been there. City Sound carved out a niche in this market with 3 different buildings. Yep. Because Chris knew what musicians wanted and needed. Right. And the problem is that he did such a good job, you can't get in at City Sound. There's a waiting list. So there's still a market for other people who own buildings. It's not like there's no room for you. Oh, no, there's in fact, I would say I have a waiting list too. So Chris has a waiting list, I have a waiting list. I think the only place that doesn't have a waiting list is Profile, because Profile's enormous. And it's also overpriced. So they always have vacancies.
I'm always careful to use that language because I'm a,
because I read it from.
Yeah.
I'll say it. You don't. Yeah, I get it. They're a competitor of yours. You don't want to badmouth your competition. Very classy, by the way. Not being sarcastic at all. Being genuine. That's a very classy move. That's also sales 101.
Yep.
But no, they're incredibly overpriced, and quite frankly, they're too nice. They're too clean. Because again, Chris sounds like you understand what a musician wants and needs.
Right.
They're only focused on what a musician wants and what they think a musician should have. And it's like, dude, I remember back in the day, we paid $400 a month for a spot at Profile. That was the equivalent of 150, maybe $200 at City Sound.
Right.
Technically, Profile was nicer, but the moment we had a chance, we moved to a less nice spot because the value is so much more.
Right.
And that's the point. That's why I'm saying they're overpriced is they do not provide enough square footage or value based on the prices that they charge to be in their building. I'll say it all day long. Y'all got to fucking, well, maybe they don't. Maybe that's their model is they intentionally overcharge to keep other clientele out. And
maybe they
always have vacancies because they charge so much. So maybe that is part of their model. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that they have vacancies, and I'll take the high road on that one. But there's a lot of reasons that they do.
Take the high road. I'll take the low.
I'm happy you can say all the stuff that I'm thinking, and I'll just I'll make sure that Patrick doesn't call me and sue me for slander or some shit. Because I rented at Profile for a while too, and I shouldn't say that. I was actually there.
Is that the owner of Profile, Patrick?
Yeah, Patrick. And the whole thing about the whole thing about that business is they're an event center that also has rehearsal spaces. That's the whole model of that business. My whole thing is I have a recording studio that does rehearsal spaces. And my recording studio is my primary income, but it's set up in such a way that bands can be loud as they want 10 feet away from me, and I'm doing just fine.
So you're already in the model of I want a building. I don't just want a studio.
Right.
You kind of already know what your idea is. You get in contact with the dude from Hams. He comes over, tours your spot, and he flat out asks you what?
So he comes out and he goes, what's stopping you from having 20, 25, 30 rehearsal spaces? And I looked him in the eye and I said, I don't have $200,000 to do a build out. And I'm not even kidding. His exact words were, what if you had $200,000 to do a build out? And I laughed in his face. I literally laughed in his face because I'm just going, who are you and what are you talking about? Because this is within like 15 minutes of meeting the guy. And he's going, what if you had $200,000 to do a build out? And I laughed. I'm like, going, who the fuck's going to give me $200,000 to do a build out?
Did he tell you what he's called? Like, did he describe what he was doing other than the what you already said, where he finds somebody he believes in or whatever and invest capital? Is he what's referred to as an angel investor? Because we all know about Shark Tank and a shark investor.
Sure.
Is he an angel investor?
That's, he never called himself that, but that's what I would call him.
Because I think the difference is he didn't take a cut of your company.
No.
He invested money in you without. I believe that is literally the definition of an angel investor versus a shark investor like Shark Tank. They command a chunkier company.
Correct. Yep. So his whole thing was he goes, I like your idea. Your idea works. Let's find a way so that we can make money. And that was his whole thing. And I'm going, that's fantastic. And so we had several more meetings. It wasn't like we ironed it out that day or anything, but we had several more meetings, went to a bunch of his locations that, where we are now used to actually be a dirt floor, empty pole barn. So everything's brand new. Nice. Like every wall, every door, every camera, everything that's there is brand new. And it was sitting vacant. It was a big empty building or a big empty space in one of his buildings doing nothing for him. And he goes, well, this will do something for me now. It will do something for Will and his business, and it will do something for his community, which is his whole thing. Is he goes after kind of investing in niche communities because he believes that those small markets are important, and that's what he loves about Minneapolis. He actually our space is right near the Ivy Arts building, so if anybody knows anything about the Ivy Arts building, it's a 3-floor artist community, and it's artists who are mixed media, it's people who have galleries, it's people who literally create art in their space, whatever it is. It's an artist community. and it's really reasonably priced for that community, which is abnormal. So it's one of those things where he believes in the community aspect, the artistic aspect, and he thought having a music space in that same complex made a hell of a lot of sense, just because of the synergy aspect.
So you own the building then?
He still owns the building. We own the business.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay. So it's technically our business, meaning him and we rent from his ownership of the building.
Right. So he has the holding company. He owns the building.
Yep.
He helped you start a business.
Yep.
And you guys rent from his holding company. So he's
Correct.
making money either way.
He is. Yep. And like all things with business, it's like he goes, hey, there's a minimum expectation, and I'm going, I have zero problem hitting that minimum expectation monthly, and and so far it'll be a year in October that we opened, and it's been great. We've been full the whole time, and he's happy, and we're gonna have that build out paid off fairly quickly, and things are gonna keep moving forward, and gonna keep having spaces for musicians to create, and have space for me to be able to record and create as well. My own band rents there.
Now, a lot of the shit you're doing too over there, because I've made this distinction, and I've built a little bit of integrity on. I don't split hairs, but I also don't blow smoke.
Sure.
So a lot of the bands I've seen you work with over there, you're definitely not producing them.
Right.
You're engineering them.
Oh yeah.
You've done something very, and I needed to say this. I needed to say that this way in order to make sure I set up the context of this. It's very impressive what you've done over there, because it's sort of like a factory. You bring bands in, you hit record, you get them out of there, because that's what a lot of bands do need.
Mm-hmm.
What is stopping you, though, from becoming a full-fledged producer? Is that not something you're interested in? Or is it something you're not, where you're like, well, I produce my own bands and the shit I'm in, I have zero interest in being someone else's producer? What's preventing you from literally just going full-blown with the bit?
Sure.
Beyond, because the factory thing is impressive, because a lot of guys just can't do that.
Right.
A lot of guys do not have the ability to do it, because it takes a tremendous amount of focus, work ethic, and the ability to just go cool.
Right.
Right. Because your job isn't to make every band sound like the next big thing. Your job is to get people recorded.
Yeah.
It's their job to have their shit together and show up and be able to fucking do it, right?
Right.
Am I wrong?
No, it is. And actually it's because of the way that even my pricing structure, the way that I record bands is I've done something for years which is abnormal, is I don't record by the hour. I don't record by the song. I record by the project. And I literally give every band a customized quote based on what they need and what they want to do. And I can go, okay, cool. If you want to do X, it's going to cost X, so that everything it has a expectation immediately. So that if somebody goes, hey, I just want a demo, okay, that costs less than somebody who wants to do like a full-fledged production single.
Perfect.
As far as
I like that answer too, because it's fucking concise.
Yeah.
That shit makes sense.
Yeah.
Like right out of the okay, got it.
Yeah. And most
bands aren't smart enough to spend the $5,000. They want to spend the $500.
Yeah,
that's the biggest hurt. Am I wrong?
No, that's right. It's the
okay. Well, then this is what you're gonna get. I'll give you a $500 demo.
Yeah, I will do that, and I do that pretty often.
It's not going to sound like a $5,000 EP.
Right. And the thing that a lot of with the production aspect too is, like, as far as being a producer versus being an engineer, is I kind of like to say, from my perspective, from a mental perspective, I like to produce like 5 to 6 albums a year. And what ends up happening is, by virtue of me being a musician, one of those albums ends up being one of my bands that year. So out of the gate, you've already knocked one of them out, because it's going to be cool. I'm going to spend the next 6 months on and off just working on this project. And it's my own music, because that shit still matters to me. And as far as that goes, then at that point, I kind of find projects that either A, I'm actually really passionate about from a music perspective.
So like you're a fan of their music, or
right, they're
really close friends of yours.
Yep. Or they actually could benefit from somebody doing that. Because I'm going to use the example of a band that I really, really enjoy, who has zero need for a producer. And that band is the band Cymothua here in town. Those guys don't need producers. And the reason I say that is because,
shout out to those boys.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're a great band. But those guys don't need a producer, and here's why. They're a 3-piece, no bullshit instrumental band. And that's their whole thing, is they're not going to be a band that's going to benefit from having somebody sit there and go, well, how about adding a harmony in this part, or adding like a background guitar lick here, or doing some sort of a bass trick here, or whatever it may be. They're just not that kind of a band. Whereas when I'm working with, I'll use the example of working with Thor from Vancouver, that needs a lot more production. There's a lot more going on that's coming out on a major label. There's a lot more, well, how about we do this? Or how about we, let's add this background vocal, or let's add this guitar harmony, or, hey, that guitar part that you're doing, that's actually conflicting with the bass part, so one of us needs to change a chord so that it actually melds better with the vocal, or whatever it may be. Actually, like, working and treating the songs based on what it actually is needed. So you sit here and you go, and both are great bands, and you sit here and you go, these guys don't need it, these guys do need it. And kind of determine what the project is and when it's and where it's going. You're talking about a major label release versus dudes who create music for fun.
Yeah,
and that's the difference.
Do you ever struggle when they're paying you? Mm-hmm. They come in. This has to have happened several times.
I think I know where you're going, but I'm gonna let you finish the question.
Where it's just like, this is not good. This is like where you almost have you ever questioned giving them their money back because you don't want your name involved with it?
I've never questioned it. In fact, I've actually done it twice in my career. I've never done it. I've actually done it.
That's amazing.
And both times, and I'll leave the band names out of it. And it was a long time ago. But
please just tell me the band names, dude.
Well, neither of them are bands anymore,
exactly,
so there's that. Yeah,
exactly.
So
just tell me.
Yeah.
No one watches this fucking podcast. Anyways.
I'd actually have to sit down and remember, because this would have been 3 locations
so you
ago.
Can't remember, but okay.
Yeah.
We'll give them a pass.
So many fucking projects over the years.
Poor memory.
Yeah, we'll just go I've done too many drugs over the years and leave it at that. But we're sitting, so I've literally so I'm recording the drums, and we're on song number 3, and we're talking past number 15 of trying to figure out the arrangement of the song. And so I literally just, after so many times I hit and record and go, dude, do you even know the song? Because I'm that way. I'm not going to sit here and mix words. I'm just go, do you even know this song? Because the whole agreement is you need to come in here prepared, because I'm not charging you per hour. I'm not charging you per song. So one of two things is going to happen. We're either not going to record the song and we're going to move on, or we're not going to fucking record at all.
Right.
And I'm just going to go, cool, have a good day. And so we're on the third song. The first 2 songs were a lot more work than they should have been to begin with, to be honest. And then we get to the third song, and they have 8 songs more, and I'm just sitting here going oh my God, if these are the ones that they quote-unquote said the warm-up easy songs, I'm in for a long night. And so after and I'm not even kidding, 17th, 18th pass or whatever it was, couldn't even fucking get past the first 2 minutes of the song. So I just kind of looked at the guitar player and I just kind of said, hey, with drummer, why don't you come in here and we'll talk and everything. And so I take the cash that they handed me at the beginning of the session, I fucking peel off the money, I grab myself $50, and I was like, come back when you're ready to record. You've paid me $50 today for my time.
Yeah, dude, because it's I always question this, I've always questioned this. When a band writes a bad song or makes a bad video, right, and they put that content out there, nowadays it's on the internet, right? But back in the day, it would just be on the radio or whatever.
Yeah.
And we can use Journey for an example. They have that song, Any Way You Want It.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the second verse of the song where the first line ends the first round. It's all night,
yeah,
oh, every night.
Yeah,
and then the second part of that stanza, or whatever the fuck it's called, is hold tight, oh baby, hold tight.
Yeah.
And when I heard that and actually listened, because I was listening to the lyrics, because I rarely do that.
Yeah.
I started laughing so fucking hard. Because immediately, in an actual instant, I immediately thought of all the people along the chain that had somebody was in that room, and they were like, "That's the one.
Yeah,
that's the take, buddy. You got it, man. Nailed it." And somebody had to tell him that is terrible.
Yeah.
So in that situation, it's pretty obvious, right? Huge band. surrounded by yes men.
Yeah.
You're at the top of the world.
Right.
Steve Perry was the king at the time.
Right.
Nobody's telling him it was bad.
Yeah.
Okay. But locally or on the underground, before you're at that level, this happens quite a bit. You have band members, you have engineers, producers. Back in the day, you had people at your label, friends, family. No one told you that wasn't good along the way. And that made it nowadays all the way to the internet.
Yeah.
There was so many stop signs along the road where you could have bailed on this trip, and you drove that motherfucker right off the cliff. How many times do you see that? How many times, just like not in the past, obviously, but like on a regular basis, how many times do you see a band come in and they're like, we want to record, and that's kind of where they're at, where you're just like, oh my God, dude. But you have to fight it.
Yeah.
To say no, because they didn't pay you as a producer.
Yeah.
So you're just sitting there, you're like, I just want to tell these guys, like, this is not the right fuck, but nope, they're not, because now we're treading into, this other territory, and like,
the whole
often
thing
does that happen?
Like the whole thing with, engineering versus producing thing too, is I always go like, look, I'm going to give you my opinion whether I'm producing or I'm in engineering anyway. And I don't really go out of my way to be an asshole, but I do go out of my way to be honest. And I mean, there was a situation a couple of weeks ago, and I will leave the band name out of it because I do want to be a professional.
We left all the band names out so far.
Yeah. But, well, it's
the only shit we've talked was about Profile Music, and that was all me.
Yeah. So, there was a situation where like the entire band disagreed with, and I disagreed with a production decision, and I'll leave it at that to leave it nice and open-ended. If the band listens to this, they'll go like, yeah, he's talking about us, and I'm fine with that because I've already talked to them.
At this point, only they know, though.
They would only know.
There.
Yeah.
You can call yourselves out in the chat.
Yeah, go for it. If you're watching, go for it. Yeah, it's all good. So we're sitting here and we're going like, we've literally outvoted this one member of the band. It's like meaning. And I'm the one who brought it up because I said, look, if we make this production decision, here's what it actually impacts from the actual production side.
Okay, so far we're down to it's obviously either the drummer or the singer.
I will say that that's not correct.
All right, so now we're down to the bass player or the other guitar player.
Yeah. So it was a situation of going like, look, the decision was made
that
when
means it was the guitar player.
Yeah, you figured it out. Good job. You figured it out.
All right.
Yeah.
So now that we're down to an instrument, guys, let's see how far we can get.
Everybody go fucking clicking and find out. So we're down to, and the guitar player is a good dude, and I actually and I would work with them again. I absolutely would, to be completely honest, because even if this was the worst situation that I've dealt with in a long time, it's actually still pretty minimal, to be honest. I do a lot of vetting, and we can get into my vetting process, but for now I'm just going to tell the story. The whole thing is just kind of working with them. It was a production decision, and when we were tracking it, we actually were talking about whether or not we should do this thing, and I'm going, I think you should do this thing because it will do this for the mix, and it will blah, 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 blah. So my opinion was asked, I gave it, it got tracked that way, so there you go. So now it got tracked that way, now it's in the mix, and he's going, I don't really know if I like that. And I'm going, well, it's tracked that way, so there's really not a whole lot I can do about it at this point. I did the whole thing. I humored him and kind of said, well, let me change it and give it to you in this version. And in my brain and in my words, I actually said, I'm going to be honest with you. To me, to my ears, it sounds like dog shit. It's your music and it's your call because I'm not the producer. It's your call of what you guys want to do. But if I was the producer, I'd be like, I wouldn't do this. And that's where it's at. The rest of the band agreed with me. The guitar player did not.
How many times have you been wrong in that situation where, because I've been wrong a lot, man, probably 30 to 40% of the time where somebody's doing something and I'm like, dude, I don't fucking like it. And then 6 months later, that's my favorite part of that song.
Sure. I've been wrong a lot, and I think any musician should be able to admit that they've been wrong a lot because we all get opinionated, and we're in that moment of going, and I'll use a total example of one of my band songs. There was a song my bass player wrote, first song that my bass player has written for the band. We're on our second album. And
usually a bass player's last.
Yeah.
And that's always the joke right before they get kicked out of the band. Yeah. Hey guys, I wrote a song.
Yeah. The funny thing was, and Casey is actually a really great guitar player too, and he's a fantastic bass player. But he wrote a song and he just goes, I don't know if the band's gonna like this, and I just said, dude, at this point, we're writing a bunch of music. It's a pandemic. Who cares? Let's just write a bunch of music and see how it goes. If it's cool, we'll use it. And the first time I heard it, admittedly, I said, I don't know if this is going to work with the band. I don't know. And me being the quote-unquote gatekeeper of the band, being the boss or whatever, I'm sitting there going, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work. And my singer, Drew, and my drummer, Tom, they both said, dude, this rules. This rules. Just let's work on it. And I'm like, okay, cool. I could be wrong here. I'm just going to take it to its natural conclusion.
It's different in your own band, right? Because there's a different level of respect and admiration you have for those guys.
Yeah.
And this is what I've always said, and this is my new philosophy when I'm in a normal band, right? The thing I got going right now, it's like a project. It's kind of my baby. I write all the music, and my boys are helping me bring my vision to life, right?
Sure.
So this is a little different.
Yeah, so you're the producer of that project, and those guys are the musicians helping you out.
Sort of,
yeah.
Right? In a normal band, it's much easier, because this is what I always say, right? Like, okay, let's say I'm drumming, you're playing guitar, and you don't like my part.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to listen to you criticize my part, because I have a respect for you and your musical opinion. That's why we're in the room together, right?
Right.
That's why you're across the table and not some other asshole,
right?
right.
There's a billion fucking guitar players.
So let me listen to Will.
Yeah.
Right? Let me listen to what Will's saying about my part and try the alternate versions that he hears.
Yep.
But if I really, truly believe that this is the right part, and this goes for everyone in the band, not just me, I'm just using myself as the example.
Right.
It's my instrument, it's my call.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And the reason it needs to be that way is because the same reason I need to listen to you criticize my part and try your versions, because you should have enough respect for me on my own instrument to make that call. And this is a great example of what I was just referring to. So my old singer wrote a guitar part. He was a singer and a guitar player, and he wrote a guitar part I couldn't fucking stand. And I was like, dude, that part is so annoying. And he's like, it's my call, dude. Your rules. You made the rules. We all agreed to them. It's my call. And I'm like, fucking fine.
Yep.
Because the thing is if you want to die on that hill, that's fine. But if you're wrong enough, you have to accept the fact that you're probably going to get kicked out of the band, because you're not good at making these these hill I'm going to die on decisions. He was right though in that instance, right? And actually, no, it wasn't even a guitar part. It was this idea of a third verse. He wanted to add a third verse because he thought the song was too short.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, John, it's perfect the way it is. Just fucking blah 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 blah. He actually bent to my will on that one, because it was a song decision, not a part decision. 6 months later, we reversed roles. I approached him and I was like, John, I think you were right. I think we should add a third verse to that song. Even if it's already recorded one way, we should perform it another way. And he goes, I've actually also switched stances, and I think you were right. But it did happen over parts, in the specific drum parts and guitar parts and vocal lines and things like that. And here's the point, is when my boys, who I really respected and trusted in that room, when they died on that hill that day, they always ended up being right.
Yeah.
So that I can comfortably say 30 to 40% of the time I've been completely wrong.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to get my idea, because I thought my idea was best.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to say I was being narrow-minded, but creatively I was only seeing one possible version of the art.
Well, that's the whole thing when you create
their version and collaboration to grow on me. So that's what I was curious as a producer or an engineer, when you go, hey man, I'm not even the times you're right. I'm more curious about the times you were wrong, because those are the things that expand us as musicians and songwriters, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Am I wrong?
Oh, no, totally. You need to be able to challenge yourself and and grow. And I mean, the one example in my own band with Casey is like, that's easily one of my favorite songs to play now with the band, just because it became our song because the five of us actually put it together with us.
Right.
And it's like I'm completely okay with admitting that I was wrong at that point. And I've said that to the band numerous times. I'm going, this is one of my favorite songs on the record now. And it's a song that I always want to play at practice, because it's somebody else wrote the song. It's more challenging to play, So I'm going, this isn't my quote unquote style as a guitar player, because I didn't write it. So it's a lot more fun to actually play it and practice it because it's new.
In any of your bands, have you ever written a song in any of your bands where like you loved it or maybe the whole band loved it, but then you played it live and it just didn't get a good response and then you ditch that song?
Oh yeah. And some songs aren't live songs either.
I was just going to say, what if we're making that same mistake there?
Yeah.
What if it's a great song and it's just people aren't ready for it?
Yeah.
I wonder how many times bands have done that where they get rid of a good song because it doesn't immediately get the response that the rest of their stuff gets. And so they just like, oh, well, that song sucks then because people don't like it. And it's like, does it?
Yeah.
Because we just made this argument about how we do that with our own parts and our own. You see what I'm saying?
Right,
like,
totally.
Is it possible that that's also being done with an entire song?
I think that happens a lot. I think you go and play songs live.
How many great songs have been written that we haven't heard because the crowd didn't respond to them for the first 2-3 weeks?
Right. Yeah. And how many great songs never got actually even shown to a band because of your own actual doubt in your ability?
Sure.
You know, it's pretty
play
crazy.
The shitty song.
Yeah.
Because maybe it does suck, but there's a riff in there that's a banger.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it because it's buried in this fucking, you know what I mean?
I think anybody who writes songs, whether they're a guitar player or they're a singer or a drummer or a bass player or whatever they end up doing, because you can write good music regardless of if you're the person writing the melody or the person writing the beat or whatever it may be. It's good songs exist in all of those areas if people are willing to take the time and listen. Because especially as a guitar player, I think you have to admit that, you know, it's guitar players in the traditional rock band are always kind of like the person that everyone goes, oh, you write the songs and we play your stuff. It's I really don't like that. I understand it, but I'm more of a fan of going, here's the skeleton idea. Let's get in a room and actually like play it together and see what works and what flows and what happens.
Right.
You know? So it's like I have a lot of self-doubt when I'm writing songs, and I think any musician should be able to admit that and go, is this good enough?
Right.
And there's been so many like riffs I've played for musicians, you know, that I play with personally and go like, yeah, I like this riff. I don't know what to do with it. And people are like, yeah, that riff's a banger. We should do something with it. And I'm going, okay. And I was kind of going, this riff kind of just feels stock or lame, boring, or just because it's my own fucking shit, you know?
I remember at the end of one of my songs, I had this riff and I thought it was a cool riff, but it was just it was a chord play on a rhythm that I had been using throughout the song. You know how we do that, right? Yeah. Like you'll have this rhythmic idea or a chord idea, and you'd play with those ideas in different exactly, right? Yeah. The actual music theory theme. Yeah. And that's true on drums as well. Like if really great drummers have a main foundation concept beat that's pretty much being played throughout the entire song. Right. And it's really just different variations and expressions of that. And that's what separates a beast level drummer from like just a guy who's really good at hitting shit. Is there's an actual methodical plan happening throughout that entire drum piece, throughout that entire song. Right. You name me any fucking great drummer, any great fucking song, and I will show you the theme in the beat. Oh, see, no matter what he's playing, the kicks are always bop, 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 bop. Yep. Bop, 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 bop. No matter you would never know that unless you looked for it, because he changes everything else to where it sounds like a completely different beat, right? Right. We do that with music as well. Yep. So all I did is I took a rhythm that I had been playing with throughout the entire song, and then I just thematically took the chords from the beginning of the song and re-expressed them over this different rhythm at the end of the song, and it was kind of like a bookend for an intro outro from a guitar perspective. Right. That's literally, it was just like, oh, what am I doing how am I going to end this? I'm like, what am I doing in that intro? Here's what I'm playing. Okay. I'm like, oh, you know what? I know what I'll do, because I come out of this part, this makes sense, and I'll just fuck with these chords over. Got it. Took like literally 5 minutes to write the whole idea, maybe another 5 or 10 minutes to jam out the little idiosyncrasies of the progression throughout the whole outro. And I started playing it for people, and that's the riff that everyone they were like, that is a fucking banger riff, dude. Yeah. And I had something else over the top of it because it was an outro. Yeah. And they were like, get rid of that other part. Yeah. Because that rhythm guitar, that's a fucking banger.
Yeah.
Just let that riff just roll the whole way out the side. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
That riff? Yeah. Out of all the riffs? Like, some of these I really put some hard fucking work and effort into.
And you're just going, this is just a song just to wrap everything up
exactly.
and go home.
This was literally an afterthought.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do I get out of this?
Yeah.
Oh, let's just do this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude, it cracks me the fuck up, dude.
Yeah. It's just crazy, but I mean, like, from back to the production angle too, of like, you know, how many times have I been wrong in the production world? It's like, you know, I don't know if I want to put a percentage on it, but I would bet it's probably 50-50. It's like half the time I'm right, half the time I'm wrong. You know, and the thing about where I'm at is I'll work with bands of a certain caliber for sure, of going, you know, there's a certain level of quality where I just say no for sure. You know, it's I'll do a lot of vetting with bands and have that whole discussion with people.
Let's talk about your vetting process, because I stopped vetting, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
And this is something I learned actually right before the podcast started, so a little over a year ago. I learned a hard lesson, and then I was reminded of this since I've been doing the podcast.
Okay. I'm interested.
I refuse to form an opinion of a person based on someone else's opinion of a person.
Sure.
Even if they're my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're my close friend.
Right.
Even if they're one of my best friends.
Yep.
Because a great example is there's certain people my wife can't fucking stand. And if I left it up to her, I wouldn't work with that person.
Right.
Or have a podcast with that person. Or you see what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
Same thing with the music industry.
Yeah.
There's certain people that I've met where they're like, fuck that guy, he's a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, oh, he said this, he did this. And I'm like,
well,
okay, well, here's the thing. That was a long time ago.
This is a great topic. I like this.
People change. You know, and I know for a fact this has happened to me, where there was a period of time where I had basically been blackballed. And I know who they are. They don't know I know who they are, but I know who they are.
Sure.
Where anytime I got involved with a project, they started talking shit.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep.
Two people very specifically that I know of, exactly who they are by name.
Yep.
They just don't know. And then there's probably another group of people I'm not sure about.
Sure.
People that were probably even maybe nice to my face and acted like everything was dope. Mm-hmm. I refuse to do that to another person.
Sure.
Because anything people are saying against me is 10, 15 years old at this point.
Yeah.
People change.
Yeah.
People grow. And we may not have the same experience.
Yep.
You know, people make mistakes. Even if it was yesterday. Like, okay, the dude fucked up.
Yeah.
Maybe he feels really bad about it today. Are we going to end his fucking career? No.
Yeah.
It's like almost like the cancel culture shit.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same presumptive idea. And I would say,
unless I find out he's like a pedophile or a rapist, or you know what I mean.
Those people can fuck off.
There are lines.
Yeah, if somebody's a pedophile, they can go die somewhere. They can go die somewhere and never be found. If somebody's a rapist, they can go die somewhere and never be found. If somebody's a fucking racist, I don't really want to be around them, right? There are definitely fucking lines in the sand. And I will definitely say that, you know, growing up here and growing up in the community that I did, you know, not here, I think there's this idea in music too where everybody just needs to draw a hard line in the sand and kind of go, hey, you know, we've got this person did X a couple of years ago, or I had this experience with this person X, you know, a couple of years ago, so therefore they must be the same person. And I've definitely made that mistake with people myself. I absolutely have. And I will say that from a vetting perspective, how I vet people, it has never been based on what people tell me about them. I don't vet people that way. What I mean by when I vet people is I have a long conversation with them. And I just trust my gut to go, is this somebody that I want to work with? Is this somebody who kind of understands where I'm coming from? Is this somebody who can actually take some criticism and can deliver some criticism back? Because I don't really like to work with a bunch of yes men, and I don't really want people to feel like they need to be yes men to me either.
Right.
Because good music isn't made when everybody's all fucking hunky-dory all the fucking time.
Yeah.
And there needs to be that push. There needs to be that give and take. There needs to be some actual emotion put into your craft.
I agree.
Good, bad, or otherwise.
I've got a phrase. I say you can't create fire without a little friction.
Yeah.
Find me one band that doesn't fight like cats and dogs, and I'll show you a band who's never written a dope song.
Yeah.
You find me one band who has hits and doesn't find like cat and dogs, and I will show you a band who didn't write those songs.
Yeah. There's definitely a really, and I wouldn't even call it a thin line. Is like there's definitely a line where people need to show respect to each other and show respect for another person's opinion and another person's understanding and their craft and that whole situation. But there also needs to be there also needs to be some actual fucking butting of heads so that the decision means something. Because otherwise it doesn't hold any water.
Right.
And then you get just a bunch of fucking drabble for songs. And just
and there's roles within those things too. Like for me, it's like Jeremy and Dalton pretty much have 100% say in the actual parts they write.
Yeah.
I'll shut them down real quick when they start fucking trying to talk about drums and shit, because I'm like, nope. Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I still listen to them if they're like, that's terrible. I hate that part, or I don't like that song. But
and you should.
But it's really just kind of like, fuck, how do I even say this? I don't even know how to put this into words, really. It's more like,
it's a feeling. It's not even necessarily something you can quantify into actual like verbiage. Sometimes it's just like, going, man, what am I fucking doing here? And you just have to be able to go and just like take yourself out of that perspective for a moment and go, just listen to this other person. And just take your own opinion, take your own viewpoint out of it, and just listen to them and see what they're trying to say.
Right.
Because oftentimes what they're actually saying doesn't fucking matter. It's how they're feeling about what they're saying and trying to kind of get there together.
No, I know what you mean. And so it's weird because like they basically have 100% decision making, right?
Yeah.
But if they send me, like if Dalton sends me a version and he's like, hey, you wanted a solo in this part? Because I'll be like, hey, there should be like an actual solo here.
Sure.
Like I wrote this part, gave room for the guitar player. I wrote the riff this way because this is where I hear a solo. And then he'll come back and I'll give him direction. Like, hey, give me a little bit more David Gilmour.
Yeah.
You know what? Give me a little bit more Dave Mustaine. Give me a little bit more Marty Friedman or Kirk Hammett or whatever. I'll push him in a direction.
Right.
You know, or give me a little bit more Coheed in that one. Sometimes I don't even know what I want, and he'll play something. I'm like, that sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even think I was going to have another guitar part there. That was a great idea. Cool.
Yeah.
Done. Move on. Because when it's a good idea, there's just accept it and move on.
Right.
Like, don't. It's so I don't even really know how to describe what I'm trying to say, but it's a collaboration thing when you're working with other musicians. Like,
I think if musicians are listening to this, they're like, "Oh, I know exactly what you mean, and I don't know how to say it either."
Right,
you know,
right.
it's because music is a thing all in itself, because it's one of the arts that you can do that you can't do by yourself. You know,
you can, but not properly, not collaborative arts. You can't do it by yourself, obviously.
Right.
And it's also, music is one of the very few where no matter what you try, that probably is not going to end in especially in a collaborative, it's probably not going to end up the way you heard it in its infancy.
Right.
Like, you heard the song, like guys like me, Chad Erickson, a few other cats I've talked to, when we write songs, we hear all the parts from the first time we're writing the riff. Like, when I write that guitar riff, I already hear the drums, I already hear the bass, I already hear sometimes vocals. But by the time that one riff, let alone the whole song, comes to fruition, it's rarely anything like what I actually wrote.
Right. And that's if you're working with an actual, like, you're working with good people in a band, in the sense that it becomes, it goes from being your song to becoming our song. Yep. And that's when the song's great.
Yeah, and I've heard Jeremy Blake talk about back in the day. He's like, yeah, so I would stop writing to prevent me from overwriting the song, to let the band do that and get that I commend him for, because that's self-control I don't have. it's not a choice for me. I already hear the drums. The moment I'm jamming on that riff, I'm jamming on that riff because I hear a bang and drum beat behind it too.
Right.
Like that's what I'm jamming to, is the whole thing, as if I'm just, hey, here's a new Metallica song, and it's the verse, and you hit it, and it starts on 1 and ends on 4. You're like, wow, where's the vocals? Not there yet. But I'm already hearing all of that the moment I write, and that's how I'm into it. That's the only reason you at rehearsal even get to hear the riff,
right?
Is because I was already that into it. So I come in with this predisposed idea of what the whole thing should sound like. And back in the day, I was really bad at letting everyone else do their thing.
Right. I think we all were back then.
I'm much better at it now. My thing is now is like, okay, but let's just start with this foundation idea. Just learn this, and then we'll completely experiment with any version of this shit. But we got to at least get this version down. That's where I've been getting frustrated with the experimenting and collaborating and thing. It's like, I want to start with just getting this idea actually executed. We've never executed the original seed, so we don't even know if that idea actually works.
Right.
Because everyone's switching up ingredients in the stew before the meal is made.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing for me, is getting a group of guys to just do that, because everybody's so good, they all want to throw their own spin on it from get-go.
Well, that's the dynamic of any band too, is you kind of figure out, like, and I do this when I'm recording people too, is I go like, okay, who's the creative people in the, like, I shouldn't say that. Who are the creative forces in the band? Because everybody that's in a band is creative, at least to some degree. You know, some people are completely okay with just being, you know, hey, I'm just along for the ride, I just play guitar parts. Some people are cool with that.
Yeah.
You know,
it's usually the bass player.
It's usually the bass player, that's true.
It's a personality thing. I'm not dissing bass players. It's a personality thing.
Yeah, and I've met a lot of drummers that way too, to be honest. And a lot of people would say, you know, the two drummers that I work with are not that way. They're very involved, but I've definitely met drummers.
Sometimes it's a lead guitar player. It's almost never the singer.
Yeah. The singer is usually pretty opinionated, just by virtue of wanting to be a front person. You know, it's just kind of it's usually that way. But I've recorded a lot of bands where the singer is definitely not the creative force in the band too, where it's like, oh, the singer is the new person in the band or whatever, because they were the last person to join. These other 3 people have been playing together for the last 3 years, and they just put up an ad for, you know, hey, we're looking for a singer.
Most bands.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more difficult for, you know, for a singer sometimes to kind of come in and find their place. And once they find their place, it's like, fuck, it's all over. You know, and sometimes some guitar players especially have a hard time with that, because what was their band, now they suddenly have to share with somebody else.
Yep.
You know, and I'm just speaking from the traditional rock band setup, you know, and that's what happens when a singer kind of finally, you know, finds their footing in the band and grows the pair of balls that they needed to be able to go, hey, I'm in this band too. Because that just happens sometimes with the natural flow of things. You know, I love the dynamics of both my bands, because they're just so drastically different. Where it's like, hey, in one of my bands, you know, it's like Coffin writes, it's the guitar players, you know, write songs, the bass player writes songs, and then, you know, Drew, our singer, does all the vocals and that whole thing, and him and I will go back and forth about what we like and what we don't, and he'll even tell me, hey, guitar ideas, can you expand this part a little bit longer so I can do this vocal idea here, that kind of shit. I love that.
Right.
But I want to work with other people who are going to push me. Not everybody's that way.
Right.
Whereas Melissa from Plague of Stars, who I absolutely love working with as well.
That's your singer in that band.
That's a singer in that band. She literally wants nothing to do with the writing of the song. She goes, I'm going to write my part when you guys are done writing your part. So it's the antithesis of the other band, where it's like the 5 of us in Coffin Writes all write these songs together. Essentially, the 2 of us in Plague of Stars, Aaron and myself, will write the lion's share of the music, get Neil and his bass parts going, get Frodo and his other guitar parts and other ideas into the song, and then we finish it, the 4 of us, and then Melissa puts her vocals on top. And both work.
Now, when you do that, when you write that way, do you guys write with vocals in mind? Like, here's a section where vocals probably will go, or maybe even a step farther where, like, you're literally writing the riffs to leave room for, and I understand it's a lot different in metal.
Yeah.
But it's still done. We still do it.
Yep.
we still write verses and choruses, and we still do all the pop tricks. We really do.
Anybody who says otherwise is a liar.
Right. Do you do it that way, or do you guys just write the music the way you want it, and then let her find her space within that? How does that work?
I think because Plague of Stars is a more melodic band, we definitely write a little bit more with that kind of pop sensibility in mind, of like the verse chorus type of writing scenario, if you will. Being it's metal, it's whatever language you want to use. Verses don't always repeat, choruses don't always repeat. It's just whatever is the creative standpoint of that moment. But I mean, I'm always writing songs like you're talking about, writing songs with vocals in mind. I hear drums whenever I write guitar riffs. I hear, because I'm a drummer too, so it's like I can kind of hear how it sounds in my brain, and it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes it goes that way. Sometimes we hybrid the idea, whatever it ends up being. Vocals, I try not to get super involved with anything other than maybe like some rhythm ideas. I don't write lyrics. I don't want to. That's like, that's that person's lane, like you're talking about, stay in your lane. I'm like, I don't write lyrics well, so I'm not even going to try.
Right. And I've kind of done that now with my vocalists. It's like because at one point in time, I didn't know if I was ever going to get a real vocalist, and I was hoping I could just rope somebody into singing the shit that I had written.
Sure.
But then when Jeremy wanted to jump on board, he's like, send me your ideas. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And it was very counterintuitive from any description of me in any other band, including this group with the lead guitar player.
Yeah.
Because it was like, no, dude, if you're going to be doing the vocals, I don't want to have really any knowledge of what you're actually doing there.
Right.
I want none of that. I want to hear your original, unadulterated ideas, because even if they're worst case scenario, I like one of my ideas better. Yeah. I still have my idea.
Yeah.
If I would have given you my idea first, I didn't want you to feel pressured to work from my idea, or for me to give you an idea that immediately sent you in a direction that you wouldn't have gone on your own. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Like, I want you to have 100% freedom, and then we'll fucking look at them together and start critiquing and figuring out what's working and what's not working.
You're letting the actual natural flow of music happen, because what you're doing in that respect is you're going, okay, work down your idea, go through this process, find your voice, find your place in the band, find, whatever it may be, find your place in the song, whatever language you want to use, right? It's you're letting the natural order take its course. Right. It's just like it's chaos theory in motion, right? It's just like it's the whole idea of going, well, I could try and control this to such a point that I might actually choke the thing that I love to death, because you're trying to control it so tightly. Yeah. It's you've got to let those things just happen. Yeah. And even with recording, when I get into that situation, there's been lots of times, and like you said, I'm not typically producing, but I'm always producing to some degree, where if I hear an idea and I go, that right there, that note doesn't work.
Right.
I will still say that to people.
Sure.
And whether they choose to execute it or not, that's on them. But, so I'm always going to give my opinion. The one thing you will never hear at 1459 Studios is me turning around and saying to somebody, can you live with that? That phrase always drove me nuts when I was coming up, recording with other people.
You good with that?
Yeah, it's like, hey, you good with that? Are you happy with that take? It's like going, hey, I'm going to tell you if I thought it was good, or in the words of one of my good friends, it's not just good, it's good enough. That lovely phrase that I've used so many times. It's one of those things where I just kind of go, look, if you're chasing perfection, it's never going to happen. But we should always be working with the mind of like, good is the enemy of great. Where it's like, is it good enough? It's that whole idea of going, can it be better? Can it be better? And the answer is yes, it can always be better.
Can it be realistically better?
Yeah. But can it be better within the time frame, the skill set, where you're at as a musician?
That's what you have to deal with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I just go like, look, man, you can do an Eddie Van Halen tapping solo, but you can't do an Eddie Van Halen tapping solo right now.
Right. Or
do
even
that
this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're
going to need a year or two.
Yeah. It's not something you can automatically do overnight. And that's the whole thing is I've watched this transition of, because I've been recording for as long as I have now, and I started out on a reel-to-reel, 2-inch tape studio. It was the first studio I worked in. I'm dating myself to some degree, but it was that was a studio that I worked in. As you sit here and you go, look, man, we got 35 minutes of tape on this side and we got 35 minutes of tape on this other side. And we can't do a fucking 1,000 takes. We don't have that option.
Right.
Now with digital, you have that option.
Yep.
So I've watched this whole idea of musicians going, no, I want to make this better. No, I want to make this better. No, I want to make this better. Evolve over the years of you can fix that in Pro Tools, right? And it just drives me bonkers. Right. It drives me bonkers.
And you see that play out on stage.
Yeah.
You see these bands. I've been talking about this for a while, man. You see these bands nowadays where I can tell the moment I hear your record, and then I can also tell when you play live. And there's more and more bands that are clearly writing music and recording it in their bedroom or at their buddy's house on Pro Tools or in Logic or whatever, Ableton, and then they get the band together and book a show.
Yeah.
They rehearse the songs a few times and go on stage. Yep. And what you're supposed to do if you want to be a real band is you're supposed to write and rehearse those songs for probably months.
Yeah.
Play them out live, tighten them out, work out any weird kinks, preferably tour on them.
Yeah.
And then record them. And the real goal is to capture your sound on record.
Yep.
Not try to perform your record. Yep. If that makes any sense to, I know it makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to the listeners, because they're two very distinct trains of thought. And here's why this matters. Because back in the day, way before you and I were even born, almost up until the point we were born, bands would go in and you were expected to record the entire song in one take.
Oh, yeah.
Where I'm originally starting with is they did live recordings, the whole band in one room, all of them mic'd up, and they would do 30 takes of one song. Yep. That's that side of that tape you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Boom, put that down. Next song.
Yep.
And then later you'd go back and you'd listen to each take of each song, and you'd take the best take, which oftentimes was the first or second take.
It usually is an early one.
But I think I can do it better. Mm-hmm. Oh, I think I can do it better. 30 takes later, you go back to the first or second take, sometimes the third. But then...
That's the famous Hotel California story.
Yep. There's a few of them that are like that, actually. But yeah. That is exactly the one I was specifically referencing. And then it evolved to, okay, we're going to do multi-track recording, but you still pretty much had to do everything in one take. Then it evolved to, okay, you don't have to do the whole song in one take. You can just play this part, and then we'll cut the tape and physically go in and literally tape the two pieces of recording tape together, and that'll be the new song. Whereas now, you don't have to know. You literally don't even have to have a song or a part. You can sit in your room and record it as you write it, never having actually mastered the song in its entirety, because you played and recorded it part for part as you wrote it. I get it. I understand the convenience. And I also understand the amount of innovative and inspirational music that has been born because of that. But the discipline and the talent of the live musician there's still guys out there that are on that level, but it's not like it used to be.
Yeah. It's
there's
crazy.
Famous people who suck.
Yep. Yeah, there's very famous people who suck, and I'm not saying that I don't. I'm definitely not putting out to go like, hey, I'm better than, Joe Blow on Metal Blade because I'm fucking, I have this idea. That's not at all the case. It's like there's fantastic musicians everywhere, but there's definitely some bands that I'll use an example because I don't know them personally and I don't think they're ever going to call me, so I'll use an example. So Beneath the Massacre is this metal band that I really enjoyed. I remember.
Shout out to everyone in chat, by the way. I do see you guys dropping in. I'm going to get to you guys in a minute.
So the thing about like that band, right? So it's like I hear their album. My friend Nick, who's a guitar player in our band at the time, he was just like, God, you got to check this band out. You got to check this band out. They're incredible. And I listened to their album. I'm like, yeah, this album is fantastic. Just a fantastic record. And I still stand by this today that the record's fucking great. Then I went to go see them live, and I'm like, holy shit, those guys were terrible. Just terrible. And I'm like, and I even said, I'm like, maybe they just had an off night. Right? And fast forward to like 6 months later, they've been touring a little bit. I'm like, okay, cool. They're opening up for Dying Fetus or whatever show I'm going to again. It's like, I like the band. I'm going to go see them again. I go see them, and they were worse. They were worse that night than they were before. And I'm just sitting here going, how is this possible? And the funny thing is they ended up breaking up like shortly thereafter. They put out a couple albums. Then they came back, and they put out this new album. And I've since seen them since putting out this new album like a couple years ago. And now they're fucking incredible. They're now, it's like they've literally come full circle. It's like they weren't a live band, they were a Pro Tools band. And now they came in and just became a really great band because they took that time off to really focus on themselves as musicians and as a band. So now when you go see them, they sound like a damn machine because they put in the time. It's awesome.
Yeah. And so on a positive spin, that's a band that if they would have been held to that old expectation, they would have been weeded out through the music industry, and we never would have that dope-ass machine of a band now.
Yeah. Which they kind of were at the time, They kind of had to break up for a little while to, like, find themselves.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And
like, they would have just ended, and that would have been the end of it. But because the internet and this other shit exists, they were still able to be popular on record, get some notoriety, get some tours, so they had the opportunity to do those things and get better.
Yeah.
So then they could turn around when somebody faithfully continued to give them chances. Because honestly, man, I seen System of a Down exactly once.
Yeah.
And it was either, I can't remember if it was right before or right after Sugar hit the radio. But they played that song live. I just can't remember if it was actually on the radio or not yet. And it was the worst goddamn live band I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only seen them twice, and admittedly, I was fucking hammered both times, so I don't think I would be a good judge on that band, to be honest. It was
so early, though.
Yeah.
And I've told that story to other people, and they're like, really? Because I've seen System, and they were incredible.
Yeah.
It's like, I get it.
Yeah.
But no matter what, they definitely captured their sound on record even back then. So when Sugar hit the radio, it was definitely the same band. They just sounded way better on record, which is a way better version of this equation. If you're going to pick any version of this, but they still captured their sound on record.
Sure.
And it didn't take them long.
Yeah.
Apparently, because I've never seen them again, but I trust my other buddies who are equally critical of live performances, and they're like, nah, dude, they're fucking dope. I also heard the same thing about Coheed early. I became this is way back in the day, I became a monster Coheed fan.
I love them. I've never seen them. I need to see them at some point. I'm a huge fan of that band.
So you'll love this story then. So I tell my buddy, I can't even remember who it was. Might have even been Dalton, could have been somebody else. I'm like, dude, Coheed and Cambria. He's like, dude, I seen them in Chicago, and they're fucking terrible. I was like, really? That sucks, because, dude, their albums are dope as fuck.
Right.
And then, for no other reason than just my own fandom, they came to town one time a few years ago, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, maybe even earlier, because I was dating my wife. We hadn't even gotten married yet. Yeah, so 6, 7, 8 years, maybe even 9 years ago. Fuck, because it was before I met my wife. I went and seen Coheed, and they were fucking dope, bro. One of the best live bands. They sound exactly like they do on record live. Like, he hits all those fucking notes. Their light show is incredible. It's so well timed with their actual show. The one thing that is extremely unique about that band's live performance, and I have never seen this at any other band in my entire life. Think of all the shows we've played on the local scene, all the tours, all the regional Weekend Warrior bullshit we've done, then all the fucking national shows we've opened for and seen.
Yeah.
Never once have I seen this, and it happens almost every single time. I can't remember when it didn't happen. The entire crowd sings every lyric of every song at the top of their lungs the entire concert.
Yeah.
It's not just the choruses or the catchy call and answer parts.
Yeah.
It's all of it.
Yeah.
The entire time, dude. It's amazing. And every single person I've brought to a Coheed concert, whether they liked them or not, they were like, wow, those guys are really fucking good. So if you haven't done it and you like them, go see them, dude.
Yeah, I've just
I think
never
they're
got the chance.
I think they're the best rock band on the planet currently putting out relevant music. So, like, you got to get rid of immediately Metallica's and any band like that because they're not really doing it. It's like every 5 years, maybe we get a Metallica record.
Yeah.
Coheed's pumping out a record at least every 2 years, sometimes once every year.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, they're on album number like 14 or 15 now.
Something like that. And they're relentlessly touring. So just a lot of respect to that band. And I'm a huge fan of their music. Definitely go see them live because at some point in time, it's got to come to an end. They're just working too hard.
Yeah.
Burnout factor, blah, 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 blah. See them right now while they're at the top of their game, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say like that reminds me of going to see Sabaton, who I'm a big fan of. It's like that's like their shows too, and I mean, there's nothing that's not catchy about that band. Every single lyric of every single song is like very rhythmic, very stompy. You know, it's a lot of fun to listen to, and
almost like probably they don't sound like them, but that idea, that rhythmic stompy.
Yeah.
When you did that, just immediately I thought of Rammstein.
I did. Yeah, I'm like going. Yeah, if you don't say Rammstein, I'd be scared.
Yeah. No, but that's immediately where my mind went.
Yeah, dude. They're like Rammstein is easily the best live band I've ever seen in this, and I should back that up. Rammstein is the best live show I've ever seen. I don't know if they're the best live band I've ever seen, but that show is just fucking.
I've heard that from almost everyone I know who's seen a lot of concerts, including one of theirs.
Yeah.
That widely comes back, and I'm glad you made that distinction though, because I heard one of them guitar. Isn't there two guitar players in that?
There
band?
is, yeah.
I heard one of them motherfuckers can actually rip, like.
Yeah, Richard is a great guitar player. And he barely plays.
Right, but he's like, the way it was described to me. And I should never do this, but I'm doing it. I'm using somebody else's description. Yeah. He's like Yngwie levels of good. Like Yngwie Malmsteen levels of good. And he's in that band.
Yeah.
And he writes those riffs.
Just catchy riffs. That's the band. He knows his job in the band. Right, good riffs. Yeah, sorry, I'm like backing up. I'm like,
you can just pull it back with you.
Yeah, we'll just do that. It's that funny thing of it's just that funny reality of that band.
He just writes catchy riffs.
He writes.
That's the hardest job in music.
Yeah,
writing catchy music, and then the second hardest thing is writing catchy music with substance.
Yeah.
The third hardest thing is writing catchy music with substance that people can relate to.
Yeah.
If you can do those three things, you will be an absolute megalithic star.
Yeah.
You can do one of those three things
and be successful.
And be very fucking successful.
Yeah.
But like that's Prince, that's Michael Jackson, that's Metallica, they did all three of those things.
Yeah.
It was catchy. It had substance.
Fucking Queen.
And people can relate to it. Yeah, name a high-level band, and they check all three of those boxes. Yep. Then find a band like Protest the Hero.
Mm-hmm.
They check two of those boxes, but no one can relate to that shit except for other musicians and people who are into obnoxious music like me.
Yeah. it's musician music, as I call it.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're very successful.
Yep.
But that's why Protest is Protest, and they're not Queen.
Yeah,
or
it's like
Rush.
Black Dahlia. Black Dahlia is the same thing, right? It's like, it's songs about monsters and evil shit. Yeah, it's fun, but it's not one of those things where I don't know all I don't know all the lyrics to all the Black Dahlia Murder songs, but man, do I love those guitar riffs. They're fun.
Rush is a great example.
Yeah.
For a long time, they were musicians' music, and then they started writing songs, maybe not entire albums, maybe not the entire breadth. They didn't turn into the Rolling Stones by any means.
Yeah. They weren't the Beatles.
They've got, I think Rush has the most studio albums of all time of any band. It's something ridiculous, like 20 or 30 or 40.
ZZ Top may have beat them now.
That's another one you can put out there, though.
But but I'm not sure.
Substance, relatable.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I think ZZ Top might have beat Rush at this point.
ZZ Top,
oh, they're fun. I think I've seen ZZ Top more than any other band at this point.
Dude, I've never seen them live.
They're fun.
But I watched them play, I don't know what fucking show it was, but it was recent, like within the last 5 to 10 years online.
Yeah.
And I have never been that blown away and juiced up about a performance, because those dudes are so good. And I think that is a really interesting ability, is to be able to understand how guys are playing riffs like that and understand they're on the same level with guys like an Eddie.
Yeah.
You know, like, no, these guys are that good.
Yeah.
They're just doing blues.
Yeah. Yeah.
These motherfuckers can rip, and you can see it.
Yeah. And they're not even playing that crazy of a show. They're like standing by their microphones and they're just playing their stuff, and it's captivating.
So tight.
Yeah.
It is so that is probably ZZ Top might be the tightest band of all time.
Yeah.
Just perfect. Yeah. All day. It's a mind-blowing thing.
Yeah. I always like the idea too of like, kind of on the subject of ZZ Top, is like, and I mean, I've actually like thought about this and went, how many bands have started their career and ended their career as the same 3, 4, 5 people, right? How many bands have actually been able to go from our first successful album to our last successful album, whatever that may be? How many bands have stayed those same members? And that's the one thing that kind of always blew me away about ZZ Top is, I mean, yes, they did start out with different people. It's the 3 of them that are there now, or were not the original members of the band, but their first major label album, all of their tours, all of their albums since that first major label album have been the same 3 dudes. And you sit there and you go, how many bands can you say that about?
Yeah.
And, you know, I can go like, and I'll use another example of a band I don't care for, but, you know, same thing as U2. I'm not a big U2 fan. I'm just musically, they've never really hit me. You know, but it's like, it's been the same 4 dudes in that band too. And I'm just sitting here, you can count on one hand the amount of bands that have actually done that and had lengthy careers.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always thought that's pretty amazing.
The Stones, I think, too.
Stones have a different guitar player. Ron Wood's been in the band for ages, but their original guitar player died in the 70s.
Oh.
So but it's been the 4 of those guys plus Ron Wood for a while. So it's
Wait a minute. Keith Richards is still alive.
Keith Richards is still alive. Oh yeah.
He's the guitar player of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, but they had 2 guitar players.
Oh, I thought they were a 4-piece.
Nope. They've had 2 guitar players. Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Keith Richards is just the one everybody knows. Yeah. Yep. So Ron Wood's the other guitar player, who's a great guitar player in his own right. If
anybody wants to know why I'll never completely quit drinking or partying, Keith Richards is still alive. That's why.
Yeah. I'm convinced that Keith Richards.
It's really that simple. I'm not a very deep person at times.
I think that, you know, I think Keith Richards is literally. You know, I think it's like an episode of Highlander that we don't realize is actually transpiring in real life. And it's like Betty White and Keith Richards are literally like the last of the Highlanders, and they're just waiting to meet in a fucking parking lot at some point and chop the other one's heads off. You know, I'm just going, you know, that's got to be it. They're the only ones left. It's like, how many more people are gone, you know? That's crazy.
Hilarious. Let's dip into some of these comments. We got a bunch of people in chat. I want to give a huge shout out because I really appreciate all these people. I don't know what my headphones are doing to my hair. They're making me look like Alfalfa from fucking Little Rascals. But yeah, we got a group of people hanging out in chat. Thank you guys. Salad Days. I'm not sure. I think that might be Eric Modry. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah. I do appreciate the I do appreciate the fucking reference, the old Washington D.C. hardcore scene. So good job.
Cloth, appreciate you jumping in, buddy. Cloth is apparently not American, but I think he's moving to America. Shout out to Travis Doherty, Jeremy Blake. Can you start the podcast over? I just got here.
Sure, we'll rewind really quick and start all
you'll
over.
Just have to catch that first chunk on replay, bud. Give me that second view, brah. Should be a start over. Fuck you guys. Sean Ware, 1000%. Hey fellas, shout out to Sean Ware. He might be my favorite podcast guest of all time. Sean, you got to come back, dude. And honestly, man, I think I think Sean and I, if we can figure out how, I think we might start a podcast together.
Do it. That'd be fun.
Love that guy. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. Shout out to Sean Ware. Shout out to Jeremy Blake. Yeah, fucking Highlander reference. Yeah.
We're all nerds, man.
The Highlander reference is dope. That was one of my favorite. Dude, Duncan MacLeod. I liked the show.
Yeah. The actual USA TV show. Yeah.
Dude.
That was some after school special shit.
Dude,
I love that.
I loved that fucking show and that song by Queen to start this. Here we are, born to be kings.
I love that
We're
show.
The princes of the universe.
I haven't heard this in so long. I'm going to have to go home and listen to it now.
I am immortal. I have inside me blood of kings. I have no rival.
That's fucking
What's
awesome.
The last line? No man can be my equal.
That's literally like this thing in my head that's like going, it's coming back.
Oh my God. I fucking loved that show, bro. I wanted to be the Highlander so fucking bad.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think when I was a child, there was 3 things I wanted to be with all of my being. I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle first. And then I wanted to be
Which Ninja Turtle though? You have to pick.
I literally this is actually going to explain a lot about my personality. So
it's a fair question.
I toiled between Raph and Donatello.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are my 2.
Yeah.
I found Leonardo to be quite pretentious.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. I loved Michelangelo, but I just couldn't really. I was never that funny or goofy.
No, nobody. It's like everybody aspires to be Michelangelo, but anybody who's really into the Ninja Turtles isn't cool enough to be Michelangelo.
The only person, Sean could be Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Sean, where Jeremy Blake could be a Michelangelo.
Yeah, I mean Jeremy Blake is Michelangelo.
So I wanted to be a turtle first, then I wanted to be Marty McFly,
okay,
and then I wanted to be Duncan fucking MacLeod. Those were the 3, bro. And then I turned 12 and realized I wanted to be myself.
Yeah, it's super funny to sit there. It's like, as musicians, I think it's like the only the recollection I've had of who did I want to be growing up, what guitar player would change weekly based on who inspired me that week, right? It's just like I remember the moment
I lied.
Yeah,
I lied.
Yeah.
You just reminded me. I'm a total bullshitter. No, then I turned 12, and then I wanted to be James Hetfield until I was 26.
Yeah. Yeah.
I forgot about that whole part.
Yeah, for me, it was just always, man, who do I want to be? And I'm just like, who do I want to play like, and that kind of thing. And I'm just going, I guess my musical style is an amalgamation of 40 fucking guitar players that I love, I guess, but there's never I could point to 5 that I'm I really like these 5, these players or
Who's
whatever.
your Mount Rushmore guitar players?
Oh, my Mount Rushmore guitar players.
5, you get 4.
I get 4. Okay. So,
unless we're going full 2021 on the bit, going full blown PC and allowing you to add a 5th one to Mount Rushmore, because that's what's gonna happen. They're either tearing it down or we either have to tear it down or add Obama. It's the only way we get to keep Mount Rushmore. We either have to tear it down or add Obama, because I'm telling you, man, they're not gonna. The way it stands with 4 white dudes is not gonna work.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, the wonderful world of the wonderful world of political correctness is
and you have a political science degree, so you know exactly what I mean, and you know I'm fucking right. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I actually think you're completely right.
Obama or the fucking Mount Rushmore is coming down.
Yeah.
There's only one plan. This is like Doctor Strange. I've seen the future 14,605 times. There's one way. This was the only way. We have
one chance.
We have to add Obama to Rushmore. It's the only way they're going to let us keep it.
Yeah, I'm. It's like I'm a big proponent of just
you
like
5. That's the point. I'll give you a 5.
You're getting.
I'll tell you what.
I'm gonna have a hard time picking 4 anyway, so I'll take the 4.
Yeah. The new Mount Rushmore. Yeah. What's your Mount Rushmore? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
Because future Obama's coming.
Yeah.
There's room for a 5th face.
Oh, there's a lot of. Oh man.
It better be his black ass.
Yeah. Thanks, Obama. No,
how much you want to bet if they put Obama on Mount Rushmore?
The entire South is gonna freak out.
How much you want to bet? How much you want to bet if they put Obama on Mount Rushmore? There will be a group of people huddled together that in unison will go, "Thanks, Obama."
I would go there just for fun. I would do it.
I would literally just try to find that group and film them because it'd be worth it. It would be worth putting Obama on Rushmore just to get a group of people saying that in unison as it's unveiled. "Thanks, Obama."
The guitar players of Mount Rushmore, I'm like, number 1 is super easy for me, being the metalhead that I am. Tony Iommi is no question that Tony Iommi goes on.
Black Sabbath.
It's Black Sabbath started the whole heavy metal thing. They've started 8 bazillion genres, and somehow there's 8,000 bands that want to sound just like Black Sabbath. I don't get it.
So and I are a little older than a lot of other people in the scene, and we were raised by a generation that called Led Zeppelin the first metal band.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But anybody with any respect to our version of the art, so hard rock and metal, better fucking know about Black Sabbath, and you better fucking understand that he not only did Black Sabbath invent metal, Tony Iommi single-handedly invented distorted guitar.
Oh yeah.
He's the first person to walk into any music store and try to buy an amp that intentionally had overdrive in the signal to create a distortion sound.
Yep, to get that breakup.
That literally didn't exist until Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath. Good choice. Yep. Who's your next one?
So the next one is another really easy choice.
Actually, why?
Okay.
Other than what I just wanted to explain that fun fact about Tony Iommi, because not a lot of people know that, and they need to, because it's important.
It's
like you're not jamming on a 5150 now if it ain't for Tony Iommi. That's the point.
There's so many, there's just everything that Tony Iommi did. I mean, from a musical perspective, from a creative perspective, from the creation of the genre of heavy metal itself, from the fact that his riffs are timeless, from the fact that riff-oriented music was the foundation, of my opinion, is the foundation of good metal music.
What do you mean by that riffage?
It's got that melodic element. It's got that catchy element. It's got that you can hum along to it. You can bang your head to it, whatever it may be.
Okay, so
it's memorable.
So the guitar part is more important than just playing behind the vocal part.
Correct.
So James Hetfield's entire philosophy of writing rhythm guitar parts that are compelling under a solo is what he did with rhythm guitar parts originally. So the guitar part was as catchy or a part of the song as the vocals or anything else. He is also the first one to do that. You're right. I never thought about that.
Yeah, wow. So I love that about
Paranoid. Think about fucking War Pigs. Think
Iron
about
Man, Electric Funeral, Fairies Wear Boots. Even a lot of the stuff that they did with Dio, with the Mob Rules and the song
Everyone
Heaven and Hell.
About the Dio era.
Yeah, the Dio era stuff is great. I was actually listening to the Heaven and Hell album, which was the last album they did with Ronnie James Dio after Black Sabbath was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. for some, which I still think is bullshit that they didn't include Dio in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Black Sabbath. I felt it was kind of a snub personally, but because the stuff they did with Dio was fantastic and it kept the band alive and relevant for a really long time. You know, post Ozzy.
Wasn't that like the first version of like Hagar joining Van Halen? Like it was a relevant superstar singer. Because he was already Dio first.
He was, yeah. He was in Rainbow, and he was in what the fuck is the other band that he was in prior to that? But
Rainbow was a good band. My dad was a huge fan of that band.
But I mean, Dio's Dio all in himself. You know, it's like the same thing that I would say about Van Halen, and I'm going to get some hate for this. It's like Hagar was Hagar all by himself too. It's like Hagar was amazing in his own right.
It's not like they just pulled some other guy. They went and found a name and a personality and a voice that could help sustain their product for years. And years.
And it changed the band enough that it felt like it felt like a new band, but it didn't change the band so much that it didn't feel like the same band. So it was Van
Halen almost.
Yeah, like Van Halen. And I would say, you know, Iron Maiden when Bruce Dickinson joined the band. Everybody forgets that Bruce, example, everybody forgets Bruce is a replacement singer. You know,
that's a great example,
it's so as far as that goes, I would absolutely argue. I'm like, Tony has to be there. There's nobody else that I think deserves to be there more from my perspective of enjoying music.
Who's number 2?
The other one is, I think, a fairly obvious choice for anybody else who knows me is Eddie Van Halen. I'm like, where Tony Iommi changed the instrument, Eddie Van Halen changed the instrument again. He changed the instrument a decade later, so he really took guitar to the next level. And you could argue that, you know, Hendrix did that first. And I mean, Hendrix was amazing in his own right, but this is my fucking Mount Rushmore, so we'll go there later. Basically the way that Eddie played, the way that Eddie wrote, the things that he did with the guitar, that like Tom Morello wouldn't exist if Eddie Van Halen wasn't Eddie Van Halen. It's all these new ways of approaching the instrument wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Eddie Van Halen.
I made that exact same argument on one of the last few podcasts we did when we had this conversation. I made the exact same argument. I also put Jimmy in that category on my Mount Rushmore for that exact same reason, because you wouldn't have Eddie without Jimmy.
Yeah. Yep.
And then somebody else, I think it was Joe Hastings. Joe Hastings made the argument, well, then you literally don't get Jimmy without Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, you're right.
Yeah.
So
everything is, and you don't get any of those guys without Robert Johnson.
And then we realized Prince is Little Richard meets Jimi Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
That's Prince.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, look at him and listen to him. It's Little Richard and Jimi Hendrix.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, we just fucking we just literally figured out the DNA of Prince.
Yep.
That's who he dresses like Little Richard and played guitar and wrote songs like, he didn't write songs like Jimi Hendrix, but
he played with the same kind of intensity that Jimmy did. It's like Prince.
A lot of them are blues progressions, just like Jimmy. So yeah, and same thing with Eddie. All of Van Halen is blues. Yep. That's one thing most people don't know about Eddie. And every single one of those riffs, every single one of those chord progressions are literally all based in a pentatonic blues progression until he started fucking with Sammy.
Yeah.
They started going in a little bit. He
started going synthesizers a lot, too, when he started 5150 Studios.
And he started fucking with some different scales and things. He went from the pentatonic to a lot of, like, the diatonic and a lot of that more... Yeah, is it fucking whole step, half step shit? They
started writing a lot more pop oriented stuff when Sammy joined the band.
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
got away from the blues progressions. But yeah, anything in drop D with David Lee Roth, everything with David Lee Roth is in drop D, and they're all blues progressions,
and they're great. And
no, I'm sorry, they're in drop. Is it?
It depended on
flat.
Depending on the album, a lot of their old stuff was E flat.
It's a step down from E. It's a step down from E.
Yeah.
No, it's a half a step down from E. Yeah. And then he dropped the bottom string a whole step.
That whole D-tuna thing that he's famous for.
He's famous for. Yeah, so that's why none of your riffs sound right, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, if any of you guys are trying to play Eddie riffs and you're like, God, it doesn't fucking sound right, you're literally a half step up.
Yeah.
Tune your entire guitar down a half a step, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh my God, it fucking works.
It works. So I'd definitely say Eddie for sure. I would So I'm kind of going, I guess, in somewhat eras, if you will, at least in my life of the eras. Like I think 60s, 70s, and I think Black Sabbath, right? So I think late 70s, 80s, I think of Van Halen, right? So if I'm getting to the 90s, which is obviously my heyday for when I was growing up. I do get 5, so
because we're the new wave.
We're the new wave. We're the
2021 Mount Rushmore.
We're the PC Mount Rushmore. Got it. So in the 90s, when if I'm kind of going in this route, that makes sense for me. I would say the person who changed the instrument after that, and you could certainly make the argument between an amalgamation of a lot of players, but I would say like the 80s thrash movement, early 90s thrash movement. So you're talking about guys like Scotty and James Hetfield, Dave Mustaine, Gary, all those guys.
I mentioned one earlier. You didn't throw in that same circle.
So
he was in Megadeth.
Oh, Marty Friedman. Yep, gotta love Marty Friedman. And I mean everybody that. Say what you want about what fucking happened with Dave Ellefson, but like everybody that fucking Mustaine has played with has been just a superstar. The guy knows how to fucking play. I don't know how anybody
says anything about Dave Ellefson other than he's kind of a pervert. But like that whole thing, like, did you see the second wave now where the girl spoke up?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, no, he didn't do anything wrong. Like I showed that to somebody. I shared that with somebody who shared it online without me asking. I violated Dave's trust. That's my fault. I made the mistake. I'm embarrassed for him. Blah, 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 blah. But nope, doesn't matter. Dave Ellefson gets kicked out of the band.
He's still guilty of poor judgment, I will say. You probably shouldn't videotape yourself jerking off, and you shouldn't videotape yourself jerking off with, when you're married and all those things, of course.
But again, it was consensual.
But it was.
So what are we upset about? Are we upset that he has poor judgment? Are we upset that we thought it wasn't consensual? Or are we upset that he's married? Do we know the fucking arrangement? How do we know that his wife's not totally cool with it? How do we know that he wasn't also recording it and him and his wife weren't going to watch it later? We don't fucking know. Yeah. Mind your fucking business. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah. I'm just sick and tired of this shit, dude. I think
it's stupid, quite frankly. I think it was a really convenient excuse for Dave Mustaine to kick Dave Ellefson out of the band. I think that he just didn't want to be in a band with him anymore, and that was his excuse. So. And I mean, Dave Ellefson was booted from Megadeth. He was booted from Megadeth about a decade ago too. So I think he just kind of said, "Well, this is just my reason to get rid of him." Yeah. I'm sure, and that's on Mustaine. I'm like, at the end of the day, Megadeth has been Dave Mustaine since the beginning, and it will always be that way. And quite frankly, I'll probably still enjoy their music. So at the end of the day, I'm still going to support the band. I like them.
I'm not a big fan of Dave as a person.
Yeah.
He just continuously seems like kind of the biggest prick on the planet.
But he's and I'm not defending that. I'm like, the one time I met Dave, he was pleasant enough, but at the same time, I don't know his personal leanings. The fact that anybody
meant like if I was in a band with him, like I'm sure he's nice to fans and like other coworkers and things, but like it seems like he kind of just like treats his band members like shit.
Well, the fact that he's had 30 band members over the career, I think, kind of speaks for that as actual empirical evidence of that being a fact.
Yeah, there's an old VH1 Behind the Music that kind of shows the tyrannical side of Dave Mustaine, and it's not pretty. Like, I don't feel bad for Dave Mustaine getting kicked out of Metallica, because if he was any version of that in Metallica, it's obvious why it didn't work.
Yeah, and I mean, it's I always kind of say to people, I'm like, look, the people who create your music that you enjoy aren't necessarily always like good people, and you have to be able to separate the art from the artist who creates it.
Countdown to Extinction is still one of the greatest albums of all time.
Yeah, I mean, they've got shitloads of great albums, and
so out of all these guys, who's your third?
Well, I mean, I'd have to go with James Hetfield. I'd have to. I'm like, just from my own playing sensibility, as fact as what he did for me as a player, especially being more of a rhythm guy. It was like that whole idea of going, I need to have my right hand really tight to be able to like play these kind of mechanic like riffs, and I mean, out of all those guys, I'm like going, if you sit here and you go, who's the face of that era of music, I think you have to pick James Hetfield. I mean, for me, it doesn't take anything away from, like, I think Eric Peterson from Testament is way underrated. It's like everybody thinks about Skolnick with Testament. I mean, Skolnick's amazing, don't get me wrong, but Eric Peterson's the guy who wrote all those great songs, and when Skolnick wasn't in the band, he kept the band going, continuing to write great albums.
Dude from Queensryche is this, or not Queensryche, Queensryche.
Michael Wilton.
He's the shit.
Yeah, he's awesome too. But it's like it's kind of one of those things where you just kind of sit here and you have to pick your battles. And I think if I'm gonna like
Gar Samuelson,
if I'm gonna pick a hill to die on, I think I would have to pick Hetfield for that era.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
it's
yeah, because again, he basically was the guy who was like, because solos had been around for a while.
Yeah.
But when solos were happening, the rhythm guitar had to fuck off.
Yeah.
That was kind of the rule. Like literally, like you would just play this boring, repetitive part, and it was just boring.
Yeah.
And he was like, nah, I want to write dope-ass rhythm guitar parts under dope-ass solos.
Yep. I would say the rhythm parts in a lot of ways were more interesting than the solos. I'm like, nothing to take away from Kirk Hammett, but at the end of the day, there's, I can pick to like 5 solos in their career that are like really memorable. Like as far as like, holy shit, that solo is like tear-jerkingly good. Like the Unforgiven solo from the original Unforgiven is like, that solo is a whole fucking world of its own.
Fade to Black.
Yeah, and I'm like, there's definitely some of those.
Obviously, the beginning of one. I don't know, but the end is like it was revolutionary at the time. Now, for me, the beginning ones are the beautiful ones.
Yeah. And you just kind of sit there and you go and like there was beauty, there was beauty in its simplicity, and there was beauty in its technicality, and I always appreciated that about James Hetfield and the way that he just wrote such great songs.
I love the way him and Kirk harmonized together on all those early riffs, like those beautiful harmonies they do in like the intro of Battery.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like they're.
You want to talk about fucking metal being memorable? It's like those guys perfected it on those first. Like I would even say not even Kill 'Em All. I would say Ride the Lightning and Masters of Puppets were like they perfected that, and then Injustice for All they figured out how to be a heavy band.
Yeah, instead of just being fast.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah, and I'm such a big Metallica fan. I like it all except for Saint Anger.
Yeah,
like that's the only album where I'm like, nope, delete that.
Yep.
Like
Load is a great record.
If I were them, I literally, if I were in Metallica, I would pull Saint Anger from streaming. Yeah, like it wouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
Because
the album is terrible, and it's
so bad,
and it's not even an issue of like it's like passe or it's like cool or it's a badge in your cap to sit here and say that Saint Anger is a bad record or agree with the masses. I have tried every couple of years since Saint Anger came out to go back and go, okay, is this album really this bad?
Yes, it is.
And the answer is yes. It really is this bad.
Every time you listen to it, it actually, for me, it's actually gotten worse.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was a couple songs I had convinced myself were, like, kind of cool. Some Kind of Monster and Invisible Kid, I think it was.
Yeah.
I went and listened to those. The riff in Some Kind of Monster and the drum beat itself is dope.
Yeah.
And that's it for the entire record.
Yeah. I always say to people, I'm like, Saint Anger would have been good if 3 things would have happened, and none of those 3 things would have happened given what was going on, the dynamic of the band. 1, if they would have fucking recorded it well, like actually made it sound like a good sounding record, because everybody always goes, that snare sound, and that's become the fucking joke of the record. Okay?
Which they did on purpose. It's a terrible sounding record, and it could have had some redeeming quality if they've actually would have tried to make it sound decent. Okay, that's number 1.
But that didn't take away from the fact that the songs were not good. The songs were just not good songs. I always go like, those songs feel like jams. They don't feel like songs. They just feel like a bunch of collected riffs.
And I think James was too sober, essentially. Like it was too new into songwriting. It seems like he went to rehab, wrote a bunch of shitty lyrics, a bunch of shitty riffs. And then he's like, you guys, I have an album. Let's do an album. And it was like, no, dude, like that's your warm up.
Yeah.
Throw all that away and now let's write an album.
Right.
That's what they should have done.
And that's the whole thing. So, and that's actually point number 3. So point number 1 is the fact that it sounds terrible. Point number 2 is the songs weren't done. They were just jams. Point number 3 on why that record was terrible is because they felt compelled from the business standpoint to make a record at that moment. What they should have done is said, guys, let's just take 6 months off. And I don't mean 6 months I went to rehab and come back. I mean like 6 months off from doing music, come back together, be inspired to actually create together again. Watching that documentary is painful.
Yeah.
Because
I think that psychologist being in the mix was a big problem too.
Yeah.
And I think Bob Rock playing bass on that album was a big problem.
Yeah.
I think him producing that album was a big problem.
Yeah, they needed some new blood.
Yeah, and they needed somebody to say no.
Yeah. Bob was such a yes man by that point in the band, and he just needed to basically continue his career with Metallica because he could literally like work with one client for the rest of his life. It would be Metallica, and he would only have to work once every like 5 years. And that's kind of was the goal of, I think, Bob Rock with Metallica, and he just didn't want to piss them off because they were all such, they were all such big egos, and that he had to kind of please all of them. I'm actually a big proponent of psychology, and I think more people should actually, get psychological help. But, group therapy.
You don't have a band psychologist.
But group therapy for a band seems a little bit like, hey, we're millionaires and we don't know how else to spend our money. So, I don't know.
The best part of that documentary was Lars's dad. Going,
delete that. Yeah, that was a fine moment in the filmmaking. And that ties
back into what we were talking about earlier. I think we need more of that. I think we need more people in our peer group to tell each other when their shit's not dope. No, dude, that's it. Like, that's just weak.
Yeah.
And understand the context of what's happening. We talked about this before the podcast. If I send you a demo and I tell you there's a bunch of fuck-ups, especially on the kick drums, don't make your one comeback criticism, the drums are sloppy. No shit. I actually told you that in advance. Anything other than criticizing the drums is helpful.
Yeah.
I know the drums suck.
Give me some fucking feedback on the song.
Or my favorite one, the guitars are too loud. I'm not a producer. I don't know how to mix things properly. Like, it sounded good here.
Plus, it's a demo.
I need to know if the song works.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that those guitars are too... I'm yelling like you did this to me. We were talking about this before the podcast, and it's like, these are like my friends hearing the podcast and wanting to criticize things, but not listening to what I'm already telling them. And these aren't my fellow musicians. My fellow musicians are totally different story, but it's like buddies and shit,
Yeah.
Because I'll send it to them and they'll be like, oh, the guitars are too loud. I'm like, yeah, I fucking know. I didn't mix it. I literally just recorded it, like kind of looked at the levels and listened to it on my setup and then just bounced it and sent it to you.
Right.
I just wanted to know if it sounds like a cool song.
Right. Well, here's what I'm going to do. You talk to your fans for 30 seconds. I need to use the little boys' room. I'll be right back.
You know what? I got to piss too, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a little song. I didn't get any MP3s from you, but I got some of my own shit loaded up.
Let's do it.
Nothing new, but I'm going to play this. You can go to the bathroom.
We need to do that.
Unmute. I'm such an ass. I muted our mics early, and it just took forever to unmute them. Okay, so flip cams. Let's see if this works. Nope, that's not going to work. We got to go back here. You can go to the bathroom. I'll set this up. Make sure you guys keep throwing comments and all that stuff in the chat, and we will definitely start getting to it. Oh, look at that. We got up here. Okay, that's dope. That's dope. Hold on. Dude, I haven't been doing podcasts in so long. I don't even remember how this works. Okay, play this song. There we go.
Oh, revolution without dancing is a revolution not worth having.
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, hi.
So you can keep talking, or we can table that. I don't know if you want to talk about it publicly.
Oh, that's okay. So we're talking about how I had a whole bunch of health issues last year, and how it was a lot of fun, like going through a pandemic, and all that shit.
Yeah, tons of fun
going through a pandemic, and I'm sitting here going like, okay, cool. I have to have all these other like quote unquote regular getting older scans like while there's a pandemic going on. So that was a trip all in itself. It ended up being nothing serious in the sense that I just had to have my gallbladder ripped out, but it took months to figure that out, and the word cancer was thrown around several times while that was going on. So, yeah, anybody who has had stomach issues knows it's like the worst thing on the fucking planet because it takes a long time to diagnose, and it could be a lot of things. And they poke and they prod you and they shove things down your throat, up the back end, the whole 9 yards. So,
Jesus.
Yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. I will tell anybody whoever has to go through that thing, if you ever have an endoscopy, however you pronounce it, my wife always corrects me. If you ever have to have an endoscopy, tell them to knock you out, man. That was the worst 10 minutes of my life. And I've gone through drug withdrawal. I've been hit by cars. I've been electrocuted. I'm like going, that was the worst 10 minutes of my life, having a camera shoved down my esophagus and coughing the whole time while being completely awake. So. Yeah. Not
during sex.
Yeah, not during. Hey, at least then it's enjoyable. It's like, yes. Yeah, we'll David Carradine that shit as much as we can. We'll see how far we can take this thing.
But yeah, you were talking about that. You brought that up in context to. Yeah, it is. It's just nice to be able to get out and see people again
and be in a room with somebody. It's really pleasant.
Yeah, versus doing like a remote or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I'm sorry it took so long to actually get on.
Hey, don't be sorry. It's not like you were you made the virus.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, if literally the pandemic didn't happen, you would have come over. But if here's like the fucking sneaky rub is if the pandemic would have happened, I don't know if I would have started the podcast yet.
Right.
I had other things lined up first. When the pandemic happened, the podcast got literally brought from like third, maybe even fourth goal.
Yep.
To number one with a fucking bullet.
Yeah. Yep. I can see that.
It wasn't even close. There was nothing else I could do, wanted to do, or was good at doing. And those are the three arrows, right? I don't know if I talk about this, but like, if you're struggling, if you're lost, if you're confused, if you're frustrated, if you're depressed, there's an easy solve. There's three arrows, get them all in one direction. What are your options?
Yep.
What are you good at doing? And what do you like doing?
Right.
Get all three of those things in one direction and you'll find purpose and success in the long run. I truly believe that. And
absolutely.
That's not always up to you.
Yeah.
Case in point, the podcast.
Yeah.
It wasn't up to me that the podcast defaulted to that.
Right.
Because I wanted to do music, but it wasn't an option.
Yeah.
The pandemic, nope, sorry. Nope. And I didn't already have a band. I didn't have an entire album to stream or put out or any of that. I really struggled to even work on the album with people because sending tracks back and forth, I just wasn't getting from Jeremy. From Dalton I was, but from any drummer, from any bass player, nope.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't happening. Everybody sent back either, I wouldn't call it trash. I would call it non-applicable material.
It didn't strike you.
Or it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like it changed the sound too much where it was like, no, not only do we sound like a different band now, it's not even I have an idea, I have a vision, I have a formula, and it's like I'm trying to get as close to that. I understand I'm going to have to concede.
Yep.
We talked about this earlier.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But I'm not going to completely go, "Oh, right turn. I guess now we're doing this thing."
Yeah.
It's like, no, cuz this isn't a normal band. This is my baby.
You didn't start out as a death metal band and become a punk band,
or vice versa.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh well, then that's why I'm not asking a metaphorical death metal drummer to do it.
Yeah,
right. Because I don't want to go that direction. So when guys turn around and give me, well, it sounded like a death metal song, I'm like, I wanted a death metal drummer, I would have gotten one.
Right.
You know, like I wanted you to do your thing instead of trying to do what you thought I wanted you to do, or I wanted you to do what I sent you just at a higher level, instead of trying to rewrite the song and send me something else back. But I digress.
Yeah, it's the pandemic taught me a lot too, and and I mean, I think it taught everybody. I think it taught everybody something, and if it didn't, you're lying to yourself. You know, it's like the things that I love doing, where playing shows, rehearsing with my friends, traveling with my friends, writing music, that whole idea, like the idea, and I still enjoy being really busy all the time, even when the pandemic was going on. I found ways to keep myself entertained. But what it definitely taught me.
So you're the guy driving up the. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was gonna go somewhere. I'm not gonna go there.
No, it's okay.
We're bailing out halfway through that joke. It's like going for a layup and then being like, nope, pass.
Nope. There. So like what I kind of like found from the pandemic again was being able to go, okay, what do I really enjoy doing? And I really enjoy recording, and I knew that. So that was a huge focus, of course. I really enjoy recording. I really missed it when I couldn't for a few months while I was between studios. It was really weird not being able to record and work with other musicians. I love doing that. So I kept doing that. And then I love writing music. And I really kind of rediscovered my love of that during the pandemic. I knew I always liked to do it, but I always felt like I was writing for a purpose. Like I'm writing for the next record, I'm writing for the next EP, or whatever it may be in that whole situation. But I literally like sat down and just started writing for the sake of writing again. I have so many songs that aren't going to work in either of my current bands, and I'm fine with that. But because I just enjoyed the process of creation again.
How do you find inspiration to write songs? Where do you find that from? Like, because that's what I struggled with during the pandemic, and really since I met my wife, is I've been happy, and apparently I don't get inspired to write music when I'm happy.
Yeah.
I only get inspired to write music when I'm tormented or heartbroken or in some sort of pain, spiritually or emotionally or something. So, unfortunately, I'm writing riffs again because I've had some bad shit go down in the family. I talked about it on the last podcast. My dad had an aneurysm and then had a stroke. And then they discovered a second aneurysm, not necessarily in this exact order. And then he did fall into a coma. And then he had to have another surgery where they removed part of his skull. And then... dude, it just gets worse and worse. I don't even want to go into it, but sadly, unfortunately, now I'm writing riffs again. Yeah. And one of them's a fucking banger, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm not happy about that balance for me. Where do you find, because I can only write when I'm in pain, where do you find inspiration, and how were you able to do that during the pandemic?
And I think what you're describing is actually really normal for a lot of musicians, especially when you're talking about the type of music that we do. And I mean like heavy music, hard rock music, metal music, whatever, label you want to put on it. I think I always kind of use the phrase, and this is one of the phrases that I coined a long time ago, and that's nobody comes to music on a winning streak. It always comes from heartbreak, torment, issues growing up, unresolved, whatever it may be, that kind of situation. I definitely used to be in that same vein where it's like I almost had to have pain and bullshit to kind of drive me to write music and to create. For me, the way that I found, because I'm in the same boat, I'm happily married. I'm pretty financially well off in the grand scheme of things. I'm certainly not wealthy, but I'm doing okay. And I can pay my bills for the first time in my life without really having to worry about it.
Whoops. Yep. That's not what I wanted to do. Stop playing it. Sorry, buddy.
No, it's okay. So
I forgot to turn it off.
No, it's okay. The big thing with music for me was what inspires me to keep writing is the fact that I just have a really extensive record collection. And it's really varied from a genre perspective. So what's inspired me to write has been able to really kind of go, I'm just going to constantly be writing, even if I'm not writing for my band. I'm going to write for, myself and write for that experience. and I'll write a song that sounds like something Prince would write, or I'll write a song that sounds like the Misfits would write, or I'll write a song that sounds like Testament would write, or whatever. And some of that stuff turns into music for my bands, and some of the stuff doesn't. And that's kind of what inspired me as a musician, to be honest, as far as a writing perspective goes. So I listen to a record I haven't listened to in a while and go, man, this is really cool music. It's enjoyable. And I just kind of get in that moment. Like, I like the singer-songwriter named Lissy a lot, which, her music is totally different than death metal. And I listen to her and I'm just like, man, this music is incredible. And it just makes me want to write in that vein. And that just kind of practices a skill of writing.
So does that ever inspire you? Like, you're fucking with a singer-songwriter, not death metal.
Yep.
And so you start fucking around in that vein, and maybe do you ever discover like a chord progression where all of a sudden it turns into a riff that does become a death metal riff?
Oh yeah, that's definitely happened. And that's
buddy, that's for me is the most fun version of songwriting.
Yeah.
When I'm writing a riff that doesn't work, but it's just like, this is catchy, I'm gonna keep writing this.
Yeah.
And then like a couple years later, sometimes I'll stumble back across that riff, but with a completely different approach and expression, and it fits.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is a banger. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that actually happened on the song for the title track of our new album, which I'll tell the abridged version of the story, but the title track of Coffin Wright's new album is a song called Human Erase, or our new album's called Human Erase. Comes out in September. We'll release all that stuff later. That song was a song that I had riffs laying around for a while that I thought were too heavy for Plague of Stars and not heavy enough for Coffin Wrights. And then my singer heard that and went, this is the title track of our new record. He just loved it.
Oh, word.
And it just was like, oh, this song totally works for us. And it was just that whole idea of somebody kind of like driving me into this idea of going, hey, we really like this. This is special, when I was sitting there going, I don't know if this is good. So just crazy. And that kind of shit happens all the time. And just the skill set of writing songs and working on music just makes you a better musician, which is kind of a no shit statement, but I like doing that too from a recording standpoint, as an engineering standpoint, because then if I'm recording a singer-songwriter, I can kind of understand where their head might be at. If I'm recording a punk band, I can kind of understand where their head's at, just because I just enjoy music for music's sake.
So speaking of, we were just talking about this earlier before we took a break. So who are your fourth and fifth?
Yes, the old Mount Rushmore discussion again. Okay. So we had Tony Iommi. That was like, that was a no-brainer. We had Eddie Van Halen, who I would argue is a no-brainer. We have James Hetfield, where I think you just kind of have to go, well, who inspired you in that particular era? If you're a 90s kid like me, maybe it was Jerry Cantrell instead, or maybe it was Kurt Cobain, maybe it was I don't know, tons and tons of guitar players, right? So whoever it was, James Hetfield was my third. The fourth one that I would go with, the fourth one that I would go with was Tom Morello.
Mount Rushmore, just in case it's not best guitar players.
Yeah.
So Kurt Cobain could be on your Mount Rushmore, and we're not allowed to give you shit about it.
Yeah.
Nobody's allowed. It's your Mount Rushmore. It's not the best guitar players. It's not top 5 best.
Yeah. So the next one, the kind of the next guy who like really kind of blew me away with the instrument was Tom Morello. And Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, The Night Watchman, Audio Slave, all that kind of thing, right? Tom Morello kind of reinvented the instrument again. And he ended up, doing things with a guitar that shouldn't have worked and shouldn't have been musical, but were. Just incredibly musical.
Sure.
And he always referred to himself as the DJ in Rage Against the Machine, which I always thought was really interesting. He never really called him the guitar player. He's like, I'm the DJ. I'm the guy who creates the melody, if you will, which makes sense for that band because they were definitely, no question, a hip-hop influenced band. But that was like the band that made it okay for me, to be like, oh, this is really cool, like the hip-hop sensibility of it. And it spoke to me because it was angry and pissed off, but it still had that hip-hop flavor, and it was interesting and fun and new and unique. And the way that Tom Morello approached the instrument to me just was like that next step of going, here's the next step of innovation. And I'm not saying that people need to play like Tom Morello, but he had to have inspired people to go, what else can be done with this instrument in the same way that Tony Iommi and
That's
Eddie
a total
inspired.
90s kid.
Yeah.
If you were 10 or 20 years older,
Yeah.
I guarantee you would replace Tom Morello with The Edge from U2.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that argument about The Edge verbatim.
Yeah.
And I can't argue with it.
I can't either.
Tell you you're wrong.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah.
And that shows me that is the only one out of so far, the ones you've mentioned, that's the only one that shows me when you grew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only one so far.
Yeah.
That's the only one.
Yep.
That's a total 90s kid move right
absolutely. there. And the guy's had like 19 albums or like 20 albums at this point. You know, I'm like, the guy has had a long-lasting career. I think he deserves to be up there.
I'm not feeling his solo shit.
Yeah. Yeah, his I haven't heard his new record because the only person who's ever successfully to me who's done a quote-unquote solo album who wasn't a singer. I love the Night Watchman stuff that he does. That's so like left field for what you would think of for Tom Morello, but his new solo record is like, okay, it's Tom playing a bunch of Rage Against the Machine style riffs with a bunch of new singers, which worked wonderfully for Audioslave. But they
had one singer.
Yeah, they had, but Chris Cornell could make anything sound amazing. So it's so Audioslave that totally worked. It's like Audioslave was just the continuation of Rage Against the Machine, just with a different sounding singer. Because musically, all those songs could have been Rage songs easily. But yeah, his new record. So anyway, I was gonna say the only record that I think that's successfully done the whole we're gonna be a guitar player making a solo album with a bunch of different singers. And it did not do well commercially, but it's a phenomenal record, is the Iommi record. So we're going back to Tony Iommi.
What about Tremonti? Tremonti, he's done pretty well. I
actually haven't listened to Tremonti's solo stuff. I haven't given it a chance, and not because I don't want to.
It's not great, but it's surprisingly decent.
Yeah. I do love Alter Bridge, which a lot of people be like, oh, that's not. I'm like, fuck you. That band's ridiculous. Miles Kennedy is amazing. Mark Tremonti's a great guitar player.
Right.
Those things, right?
No, they're pros.
Yeah.
They're real pros. Those guys are really, really good.
Yeah.
And that's what really frustrates me is like, I get it if you don't like it, right?
Yeah.
But don't fucking sit here and tell me they ain't good. Because if you're gonna say that shit, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. There's an absolute level of talent. And it transcends genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I don't care
stop.
for U2. I don't care for them musically, but I realize how important of a band they are.
Well, and I bet if we went and seen them live, especially if we hung out on side stage and got to watch them warm up, and we'd be like, dude, these dudes are fucking good, bro.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason they're this successful.
Yeah,
like
they're a
guys
good band
at that level.
Yeah,
because they're still of the old school.
Yeah.
Like, they still paid their dues on the underground. They didn't record a single, release it to the record or to the world,
internet,
and then get famous, and then have to be like, okay, I guess we're playing shows now and going on tour.
Yeah.
It's not, no.
Yep.
No, they actually started, like, yes, I get it. The Edge learned how to play guitar in U2.
Yeah.
But they still played local shows. They still became good.
Yeah.
They still got famous doing it the old way.
Right.
You know, and I don't mean to be pretentious and preach, but like there's a real value to that really needs to be respected, and we need to figure out a way to obviously utilize the new technology in this situation, but still honor that, because that's what good is.
Yeah.
And you can see that when you hit that level. It really doesn't matter what genre of music you play. If you have an understanding of talent, you see it in all of these cats.
I like how the one of the things that I kind of enjoyed when Mike Von Mucha, who's the guy who taught me how to record many moons ago, he's from my hometown, La Crosse, Wisconsin, Actual Sound Studios, total Grammy winner, total pro. He taught me how to record many moons ago, and I love whenever he comes to hang out with me at 1459, when he just comes to hang out and just watch me work on music. He just goes, I love how you treat Pro Tools like it's basically just a really fancy tape machine. Mm-hmm. And that's always inspired me to go, like, I'm not letting Pro Tools make my songs better. I'm literally just going, okay, well, here's the best take. And instead of cutting tape like I used to, I can go, well, I can edit nice and efficiently.
So you don't believe in a punch in, punch out?
You know, the way that I record is I always go, okay, give me a good, like, give me a full take of every song. And that's drums, that's bass, that's guitar, that's vocal. Like, give me a full take of every song. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go pick out choice moments from each of the, because I have the ability to do. Where instead of going like, okay, we're going to punch in this verse so it's completely tight, then we're going to punch in this chorus so it's totally tight, and that. I like to basically edit with actual organic take, and that's how I like to record.
Because I punched in back in the day.
Yeah. Yep.
On tape.
Yep, which you can. You can. It's just a little bit. You can punch in with vocals and you can punch in with guitar, bass sometimes, depending on how dynamic of a bass player it was. Drums, it was almost impossible.
Depended on how you did it. Yeah. The way I was taught, it was seamless, and it was easier with drums because drums were so noisy. And as long as your drummer was playing the same proper part tight, leading up to it, and you punched in way early, like you don't punch in on a 1.
Right.
No, you punch in like somewhere when he's fucking got a big whoosh going in his cymbal. That's just like
something with a hi-hat ring.
Resonant frequency where it's just like consistent. Yeah, or hi-hat, or whatever. And you punch in half a bar early. So by the time he gets to the part, he's fucking up. And you cue him up a full 2 bars before that. So by the time he even gets to the fuck up, he's already playing at full velocity, in swing, perfectly on time, and you get it and you get out and you really can't hear it. We actually had a way harder time doing it on any other instrument because of the subtleties.
Sure.
Because good drummers, like when they're like literally the adrenaline's pumping, the muscles are loose, they're fucking in time, they're dope, that shit gets tight and consistent, and it's like, hey, you flubbed this one part, or do you want to retake that fill? Or he'll be like, hey man, it was all good, but I want to redo that fill, I have a new idea. So okay, and I'm basically letting you fucking play the verse. Boom, I punch in a half a bar early, you throw the new fill in there, we punch out, we're good to go. We had really big issues doing it on the other instruments on tape. So it's interesting you say that. That shows your knowledge and skill compared to mine, because I ain't a producer.
Well, I think everybody's different.
I don't know how to mix. I don't know shit. I know how to record. I know how to work the equipment. That's what I know how to do.
Well, I think it's,
I'm a glorified cashier.
Press the buttons. Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, look, man, it's my job to press spacebar and 3. And I mean, and that's a really dumb way of saying, all the other shit that we do as engineers.
But even an engineer, no, man, you're doing yourself a disservice, because even an engineer, there is an incredible craft that you guys have of like literally helping decide which mics and cabs and EQs to use to capture a sound and get it to the producer so he can work his magic. And a real engineer, and you definitely provide that, because you don't just hook up a random microphone. You're like, this would sound, your kit would sound way more dope with this microphone. What the sound you guys are going for, we need this microphone. That's one of the reasons. Do yourself a disservice, bro.
That's one of the reasons that I think I've carved out a nice little niche of myself at 1459, because the studio is, air quotes, known for metal, doing metal stuff. I do plenty of rock and roll. I do plenty of punk rock. I was actually talking about doing a bluegrass band from Renfest today. Is thinking about coming in, which is going to be a blast if we actually end up doing that. But I mean, the studio, I guess the bread and butter.
Would you ever record a jug band just for fun?
Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'm not even kidding.
Okay.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Let me throw an idea at you.
Fair enough.
My high school buddy, Brandon Tyson, had a jug band. They only started it because they used to go to this bar. Actually, I think it's at the Caboose. And the Caboose used to have an annual jug band competition.
Okay.
So they were like, dude, we should start a jug band and join this competition just for fun.
Just for fun. Yeah, why not?
And they did it. And then eventually it broke up. He came on the podcast. I was like, dude, I want to join your band. And he was like, okay. Because like, they look at me like a quote unquote real musician, right? Like, meaning I know how to actually write songs. And I promised him, I was like, I'm not going to take over. I'm not going to write the songs. I'm going to help you guys actually write good songs. Like, ooh, that's the part. Play that 2 more times. ooh, that thing you're doing there, I like that, but do that instead of there. Do that while he's playing this.
Yeah.
So let's move these parts around. That's what I really shine at.
Yeah.
That's also what a producer
does.
That's what
I mean, you're basically producing the songs for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's also part of songwriting. That's why a great songwriter needs a great producer, because they got to be able to do that together. Because a producer will go, hey, this is a dope ass fucking idea, but you're this one thing here, I got an idea.
Yeah.
Let's loop this, blah, blah, blah. So we've joked about this, but we're also dead serious about this. But here's it's one of those things where we can't put any money into it.
Yeah.
It's literally just for the novelty of doing it.
Yeah.
If you're interested, man,
let
me know.
We'll talk
make
about
it happen.
We'll talk about a way to fucking work it out. We'll work out a trade or something. We'll figure out something.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah,
for sure,
but I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm not even kidding.
Doesn't it just sound like a dope idea?
It sounds fun, you know.
Bluegrass is one thing,
yeah,
but a jug band, bro,
yeah.
like an actual jug band,
yeah.
Like not we're gonna make jug band style music on real instruments. No,
yeah.
we're
gonna make real fucking jugs.
Fucking jug band, dude.
So my friend Kelly, like I always tell people, I'm like, you know what? However outlandish of an idea you think it is, I'll fucking do it. I'm gonna I did something a couple of months ago that I've done for the first time, and there hasn't, and I'm really fortunate to say that there's very little that I have at this point in my musical career that I haven't done. I mean, like I've done the touring thing. I've ran a label. I've done live sound for people.
You about that, by the way. Keep going.
But then I mean, like I've been a performer in bands. I've been an engineer. I've been a producer on albums, on that kind of thing. I've been like a financier for musical projects. As far as like every aspect of the music business, at some point I've touched. But as far as what I did a couple of months ago for the first time as a recording engineer, I never done. And that was, I had a friend come in and she goes, I do singing bowls. And a lot of people don't know what singing bowls are. So look it up on the lovely internet here of going, hey, what's singing bowls? Singing bowls are basically a bunch of these, they're literal bowls that make specific tones. It almost sounds like, it sounds like a David Lynch movie, like all that horror sound, things like that. That's essentially what the singing bowl sound is, right? But anyway,
and
so
they use the fucking
and they spin it around and make the different tones.
It's like a mortar and pestle vibe.
Yeah, same idea.
It's a resonant frequency they get by spinning it around the bowl.
Yep.
And they do that. It's like often in meditation they'll do shit like that.
Which is what she does. And she goes with this.
Was she making a meditation?
Yeah.
Recording for like Spotify or whatever the fuck?
Yeah, and she was doing it for her business. It's Kelly O'Donnell Creative, which she does meditation stuff. So anybody who's into
Kelly
that,
O'Donnell, you owe me fucking $5,000 for the free plug.
Kelly's awesome, but so she hits me up.
The first one's free.
Yeah,
first one's always free, baby.
That's how the drug dealers hook you, Kelly. Watch out. So Kelly is, and she's a good friend of mine.
No, we'll give her the plug. We'll give her the real plug. Where can people check her shit out?
Kelly O'Donnell Creative. I don't know her .com offhand, but Google Kelly O'Donnell Creative and you'll find it. She's on Facebook. She's on Instagram. And
is the record done?
It is not done
but
yet.
It will be.
It will be,
and then it'll be online to stream and shit like that.
Yep. And she's gonna just give it away for free. I think her plan is to do like a pay what you want type of deal because she wants to bring people into that world, into that meditation world.
I mean, if she can get it, I would still tell her to get it on Spotify and iTunes.
Yep.
Because for me, it would be free because I pay the $15 a month.
Yeah, then she gets some little bit back out of it.
Spotify is free depending on how you use it.
Yep.
Right, so it can still work there. And then Bandcamp, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Bandcamp, you can do the donation and get the album. Yep. I did that with Johnny Rook back in the day. I wanted that fucking record, and I had already bought it like 3 times in real life.
Yeah.
And I was so fucking frustrated because old iPods and old computers would die.
Johnny Rook rules too.
And it wasn't on iTunes, the original recording I wanted. So I fucking found it on Bandcamp and downloaded it. And I just, for shits and giggles, I put in $0 and hit enter. And it gave it to me. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I would have actually paid. I didn't think I was actually going to get it.
Yeah, pay what you want is literally like 0 to like, I've had people do $20 for a pay what you want track, and I have people do like $0 for a pay what you want track. That's the whole purpose. It all equals out, right? But Kelly's whole thing was she just goes, I don't know, have you ever done this before? And I'm like, no. but I want to, because why the fuck not, you know?
Jeremy has a great question I want to throw in here, and then I want to ask you about the fucking the goddamn zero budget.
Okay.
But anyways, he has a great question here. What mics do, or that's not Jeremy, sorry, it's Cloth. It's just sitting under Jeremy's comment. I'll read Jeremy's comment because it's a good. I feel like Tremonti is such an underrated player and songwriter, and he actually has a pretty solid voice too. I agree.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really that into it, but if you're gonna say it sucks or he sucks, then that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. You're just being an asshole, and you don't, or you don't have a good judgment.
You're
or
speaking
taste
from a
in
place of
music.
jealousy often.
Right.
You know?
Like, bad is bad.
Yep.
You know, and I'm guilty of criticizing a lot of people.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that in an honest way.
Yeah.
Like, I will be a critic. But if something's dope, I'm going to admit it's fucking dope. And Tremonti is dope even if I don't like it.
Yeah.
The dude is a fucking beast. Come on.
Yeah.
So that's a great. But Cloth has a great question for this thing. What mics did you use when you were doing the singing bowls?
So great question. Thanks for doing that.
That is a great question.
Yeah, it was. So admittedly, because it was the first time doing it, and I often do this, and I think any engineer would say this is, and you have to be careful to do this, of course, because of phasing issues and so forth. But when you're doing something for the first time, it's a really good idea to over mic. And I always say that so that you can kind of go, hey, this is a new skill set. Let's make sure that I capture everything that I need to and just mute it later, you know, if you're not going to use it or if it doesn't add anything. So I ended up throwing up like 10, 12 mics for this situation. And it's just in, you know, like a 10 by 12 room. She sat on the floor and just kind of like set up all the bowls around her. It's like 12 or 13 bowls, I want to say, with different, a lot of different frequency ranges going on. So I said, I think what's going to happen, what I know about music, is I'm going to basically throw up a quad of condenser mics basically as overheads to catch the entire spectrum of the thing. Because I'm going, when I recorded orchestras, you know, back in the day when I worked with Mike, I'd literally just go, we just need a bunch of overheads and we mic everything individually, and you just bring things up little by little as you need it, but the majority of the song is going to come from the overhead mics of the entire performance. So I'm kind of going, all right, I'm going to treat this kind of like recording an orchestra in that respect. Then what I did is threw a bunch of individual mics on the different size bowls, and I would have her hit it, and I go, okay, this is this type of frequency, so my brain's going, all right, well, this is this type of mic to capture that whole idea.
Maybe you throw a SM7B or a fucking RE20 on it.
Yeah, I use an RE20. I ended up using a D6 on one of the bigger,
That's
deeper
an
bowls.
Audix, right?
That's an Audix mic. Yep, it's a kick drum mic or a floor tom mic, or a bass as in a stand-up bass, or a bass guitar cab mic. You can use it for anything that's low frequency, really. Threw that thing up there, and then I put my my TLM49, which is a really high-end fucking Neumann condenser, basically in the back of the room, like 10 feet away.
You busted out the Neumann.
Yeah,
bro.
I brought that fucker out, and I ended up.
How much is that? Can I ask how much that bad boy costs?
Too much. It was those are $1,700 for one of those.
And that's the cheap one.
That's the cheap one.
That's like probably the cheapest Neumann. That's why I was telling somebody, they were asking me about mics, and I was like, well, the cheapest I can get in is $400, and they were like, that's the cheapest?
Yeah.
And because they were like, what's wrong with your mics? And I was like, these aren't broadcast mics. These are live SM58s. Like, we're literally going to go play on a fucking rock concert.
Yep.
They're designed for something very different. Like, you really have to ride these fucking mics in order to be...
You have to eat these mics for them to sound right.
We have the phrase on the podcast, eat the foam.
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't believe that's the cheapest. And I'm like, no, it is. It really fucking is, because if you don't go that route, the next realistic one would be the RE20. That's a $500 mic.
Yep.
And those are considered the lowest end of professional broadcast mics.
Yep.
Those two.
Yep.
A lot of people argue it's the Neumann shit, and the entry level is almost $2,000. That's where you're at. Some of those are like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Like, it's obnoxious.
It's crazy, and I will say, from doing audio as long as I have, things are definitely like guitars and like drums. you are getting more for your dollar these days than you did even 5 years ago. I mean, like a $400 mic today would have been a $1,000 mic 5 years ago. But
are you like talking about inflation and shit? Because like,
no, I'm actually talking about value. I'm actually talking about cost benefit analysis, ROI type stuff, right?
Well, because like the SM7B and the RE20 have basically been $400 and $300 mics forever.
Yeah.
Except now, well, recently the SM7B became a $400 mic.
Yep.
And the RE20 became a $500 mic. Now the SM7B is a $450 microphone.
Yeah.
So the cost keeps going up for the literal exact microphone.
Yeah.
That's not what you're talking about, though.
No, I'm saying like with the wonderful world of competition and capitalism.
Just say fucking capitalism.
Yeah, it's what you're saying with capitalism is basically going new companies start and are innovating in a way to give you something more for the dollar, meaning and
USB
it's not
mics.
Yeah, and it's not always.
Some of them are dope, but they're still not in the
yeah,
same realm.
USB mics for the most part are pretty much garbage. But the
to get into a good USB mic, you're spending $300-$400.
Oh yeah.
At that point, fuck you.
Get an
I'm
SM7.
buying a fucking SM7B.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that thing's going to have value.
Yeah. Real
value forever.
Yep. Absolutely. And you'll probably end up selling it more
shit,
in 10 years than you bought it for because of the way the inflation works.
And this USB shit, it's like 5 years from now, this mic is going to be the lowest end.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
It's part of that planned obsolescence, constant upgrading shit. Like eventually, this thing like might not even work.
That's the really if I'm gonna say there's a nice thing about spending a lot of money on musical instruments is I'll say if you buy good shit, it retains its value.
100%,
It's if you sit here and you go if you spend $1,000 on a Les Paul 5 years ago, it's a $1,500 guitar on the used market today.
Minimum.
So it's like that shit's gonna hold its value, and it's
worst case scenario, buy high end used gear and you'll sell it for exactly what you bought it for.
Yep.
But here's a great example of what you're talking about. I bought my 5150.
Yep.
Used.
Yep.
$500.
Oh yeah, all day long.
Dropped $200 into it to get everything retubed, to get new pots, get it back to what it's supposed to be.
Right.
I could easily sell that amp right now for $2,000.
Yeah. Because it's an original, which is original 5150, and everybody's going, "Oh, it's a 5150. It's Eddie's dead." Yeah, it's. I've had people like I have.
Which I won't do. I'm not going to be that guy, but I easily could. I could actually probably sell it for a lot more than that. Probably closer to $3,500 now.
Yeah,
because that one, it's an actual 5150, not a 5152.
Yep.
It's not the block letter.
Yep.
It is the signature edition, so it's not the true original, but still.
Right.
Hard to find.
Right. A hard amp to find and something that's collectible.
The dude I bought it from had two of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is like I've actually owned the amp I personally play is a 5153, the EVH head, and I've owned quite a few 5150s, and I'm pretty impressed with the EVH stuff. It's just whatever way you want to say it, but I own a 5150 and it sits in a closet. I'm like, I'm not going to sell this. I like Eddie too much, and I'm just not going to do it. But I do have and it's really stupid because I ended up buying
original 5150.
Yeah, I have an actual 5150. Yeah, it's stupid how much that thing's worth now. But it's and it's one of those things where I'm just going like,
let me rent it from you.
Yeah,
I know you're not going to sell it, but you should let me rent it.
If you want to borrow it, you can borrow it. I literally it's musical gear should be used to create music. I'm not going to make money about it.
I've been trying to get Dalton to get into a closer amp to what I got.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to push him towards the 6505 just because of cost.
Sure.
Again, it's the first, like an SM7B, it's the entry level price point for a pro level head.
Yeah.
You're not going to, what is the next cheapest legit fucking head? A Mesa, $2-3 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, where are you going? You're not, for $1,200, you're not getting anything better than a 6505. And if you know what you're fucking doing, that is one of the most diverse heads out there as well. I can pretty much get literally any tone I want out of a 5150 or a 6505 all day long if you know what you're doing.
It can do blues, it can do rock, it can do punk rock, and it became a death metal amp because it was affordable.
Or even a high, it's known as a high gain amp. Well, it has a low gain input.
Yeah.
From day one, it's had two inputs. It doesn't have to be a high gain amp. That's what I remember somebody who told me that. They're like, dude, it's a metal amp. I'm like, no, it's not. And they were like, dude, it's literally a high gain amp. I was like, it also has a low gain input.
Yeah, but I'm a big proponent of I think musical gear should get used. I think You know,
let me rent it from you.
yeah, it's like the whole thing of like if people
or borrow it or whatever.
I'm just going like, you know, people always talk about how like, you know, there's definitely collectors that I know, and I worked in the industry for as long as I did. I don't do that anymore for a living. I have a 9 to 5 and do the studio thing, you know. But as far as the industry goes, there's people that kind of drove me batty. I would sell them gear because they appreciated gear and they knew good stuff. But I'm just sitting here going, dude, it's just gonna go hang on your wall. And that just drives me nuts as a player. I'm going...
Some of those guys, though, did that for that reason. Like, I had a guy who came and bought $3,000 and $4,000 guitars. This was 10 years ago. At least once or twice a month for 6 months.
Yeah.
And his fucking family, his wife almost left him. She came into the store to try to return a guitar.
Yeah.
And she's like, he thinks this is an investment. And I was like, he's a genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he was buying really nice guitars.
Yeah.
And I was like, because she's like, he doesn't even play guitar. I was like, that's even smarter.
Yeah.
So he's literally going to buy these, store these in a closet.
Yep.
And never open them. And she goes, yes, it's dumb. And I go, ma'am, let me show you something. And I literally just went back to 2006, 2005, because we had those old Gibson catalogs.
Oh, yeah.
And I went, that's the guitar he bought.
Yeah.
It was $1,500 4 years ago. Now it's $4,000.
Yeah.
In 10 years from now, it's brand new in the box. 25 years from now, I mean, and then I brought her to the platinum room because I was in Edina.
Yeah.
And I showed her the vintage shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what your husband's buying now. And she was like, thank you.
Yeah.
And left.
Yeah.
And he got to keep every fucking one of those guitars. And I think about that guy to this day. His name was Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you he has $250,000 worth of guitars now. Guaranteed.
Which is
probably
awesome.
Spent $40,000.
Yeah. Which is, I always like say to, I always say to my wife.
That's not an exaggeration, by the way.
Yeah.
For anybody, I know you believe that because we worked at GC, not
that's
together.
Normal.
But for anybody who thinks we're exaggerating, like,
that's normal.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Like, he probably spent $40,000-$50,000. That was 10 years ago. And already those guitars are probably worth a total of $250,000.
Yeah.
Was smartest and off the books.
Yep.
Government doesn't know about it.
Yep.
He can sell those bitches cash.
Yep. Yeah.
Genius.
It's smart.
Genius.
It's
one of the
return
smartest
on
things I've ever seen in my life.
I still to this day, because I know the industry so well, and I have no problem saying this out loud. I actually did this twice today already. I will look at used guitars at all these places that I know regularly. And dude, I will fucking buy guitars all goddamn day long. I will do that because it's like they retain their value. And sometimes I'll flip them because they're undervalued, because let's face it, not everybody that works at a music store is really smart, and they'll undervalue something and I'll go sell it, and I'm fine with that. And that finances the next microphone that I want to buy, and I'll do that.
Of microphones, that's where we started this.
Yeah.
So getting back to the microphone conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry, we digressed.
Well, but we didn't really though, because we're looping right back to it. So it's the idea of buying really good gear, good mics, all of this shit, because it's highly applicable. And then you end up in a scenario like you're in where now you have options. You can actually fuck with different instruments, different frequencies. You're not just stuck with like a live performance where it's all SM57s, SM58s, and then you have that one Shure kick drum mic.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
That's your whole live performance, which it sounds fine if your band's dope and you got good gear to begin with, but much like my podcast, they're not actually the proper mics for everything.
Right.
Including recording. So Cloth had a follow-up question. Your overheads were SDC? What the fuck does that mean? See, that's how you know, like, now we're not talking about live music? Well, guess what? I'm an idiot now. So what does that even mean? I don't even understand that question.
So they're condenser mics. So the
keep talking. I gotta go grab some more.
No, grab
beer
your beers.
Strawberry lemonade.
Somebody's got a drink for me.
If you can't tell, these don't get me drunk.
Yeah,
they're literally strawberry lemonade mixed with beer. They're amazing and delicious, and you can drink 40 of them without getting drunk, or at least I can.
Yeah.
Seriously, because I've had 3 of these, and you can tell I'm not even remotely buzzed.
Yeah.
Like, not even a little bit. Dude.
Yeah, and if you know Jared, you know when he's drunk because I've been around him several times. The funny thing about this is
I
like
take that as a compliment.
Yeah, many times. Our practice spaces were next to each other for many years. But the So the whole thing when you have like cheers with water and that kind of thing, I always go like, hey, stomach issues, can't drink, so that's why I can't. So not judging, you guys do you. But as far as so condenser mics, Cloth. So basically I was saying like condenser mics. So I don't know if I just muffled my words or what the situation was, but I was using 4 just condenser mics basically in a octagonal type pattern around the actual circle. I was using AKG mics, and they were AKG C414s were what I was using as the overheads, and they sounded incredible, and they sound great on just about everything. They're a great acoustic microphone. They're a great vocal microphone. They're a great, just anytime you're trying to capture a live room type sound, they're awesome for that. So I hope I answered your question. So yeah. Condenser microphones, AKGs, they're fantastic.
We finally ventured into a topic I have absolutely no knowledge about, so I can't even weigh in whether you answered this question or not.
Yeah.
I can't even rephrase
I'm an
it.
engineer, by the way, so he knows. So there you go.
Cloth always chimes in I always knew he was an engineer just based on his comments.
Yeah.
When he chimes in and what he talks about, because he seems to really know his shit from that perspective, and that's where his comments are always coming from. Like, he's always talking about sound or production, but not from a producer angle. Like, that's never his. He's never talking that way, that language. You know? And I only can understand this because I've been in the industry long enough to like, oh, that guy's probably an engineer. Oh, this guy's a producer.
Sure.
Oh, I bet you're a drummer.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of like start to suss shit out with their personalities and the way they carry themselves. The ones that fuck you up are the multi-talented musicians. The ones that do a bunch of shit. Like, oh, I play guitar, I play drums, oh, I fucking play whatever.
Guilty.
Those are the ones where you're like, you never really know. Yeah. And you can also never tell if they're actually good or not by talking to them, because a lot of guys you can tell right away. Yeah. 5 minutes of talking to him, you're like, this motherfucker can fucking rip. So yeah, Cloth, feel free to shoot me an email. We can talk about gear, and we can have the lovely old engineer speak. 1459 Studios LLC at gmail.com. I'm always happy to make new friends. And your website is 1459 Studios MPLS, as in Minneapolis. Yep. Jinx you. Yeah, I owe you a Coke. Yeah, man, but seriously, hit me up anytime. We can always talk gear. I'm a huge fan of it. I've acquired so much just shit over the years. And that was not planned, by the way. Yeah. We should do a podcast. Yeah, together, I mean, we're just both nerds, apparently. But yeah, man, it's like I've pretty much spent the last 2 years of my life when I moved into my new studio location of just going, all right, I'm really just going to invest in all this shit that I've always wanted. I got myself a couple of Neumanns, got my, upgraded to C414s from 214s, AKG stuff, added more 421s so I can do full drum kits with 421s now instead of just having the two, just always just kind of on the lookout for stuff. Finally, I'm getting a Royer next month. That was been a long-term goal of mine, is to get a Royer R121, which is nerd speak for like the greatest ribbon ever. I can finally afford one of those. So yeah, things are good, man. But seriously, if you ever want to talk gear, let's do it. It's crazy how much you and I think alike, and like your Mount Rushmore and like the guys you look at guitar playing wise, like it's like we've always gotten along. Yeah. Like you said, our rehearsal space, that was at Cooler, right? That was at Cooler, yep. When I was in Solace and Ashes. Before Cooler got that one moved because that got condemned, speaking of wonderful rehearsal spaces. When it flooded. Six's spot. Yeah. I remember, like, because I didn't live in Minneapolis at the time. My band was from Minneapolis, but I was still commuting from Wisconsin, and I was like doing a 2-hour drive to band practice every weekend before I got sick of that and just moved. And but I was driving up there, and I literally saw. Didn't you like live in La Crosse or something? Yeah, I'm from La Crosse, Wisconsin. Don't hold that against me. That was a dope town. Yeah. Dude. That was a great town to play in for a long time. It's I still have a lot of affinity for La Crosse. Obviously, growing up there, I have different memories of it, of course. But yeah, the big thing is I love Minneapolis. I love it here, and there's things I love about my hometown too. But I was very happy to leave when I did. But as far as as far as Cooler, I was driving up and I literally like pulled up to the fucking parking lot, took the freight elevator downstairs to get my gear in the space, and I'm literally watching Nick Vukolich
yank drenched ass carpet out of the sick space, like pulling it out of the sick space, and their room was literally right next door to us, my band, and all of our shit was on the floor. Nothing was on risers. It's like the drum kit's on the floor, my cabinet's on the floor, all that kind of stuff. And Nick's just pulling this fucking just carpet. I think it was Nick. And he's just fucking drenched in just gross water. He goes, yeah, man, the space flooded again, was the language he used. And I'm like, what? This place is flooded multiple times and you guys stay? And they're like, yeah, we need a place to practice. And that must have stuck in my head for years when I started my rehearsal space going, we just need a place that doesn't flood and the bathrooms work. Holy shit, it's not that much,
Yeah, and I remember the first time it flooded, actually, I think even the second time it flooded, it didn't actually affect us where we were at, even though we were technically across the hall from you guys.
Yeah.
We were actually around the corner and down the hall.
Yeah.
And we had the drum set on a riser, and we only got like an inch, and everybody's shit was on casters.
Yeah.
So nothing that actually mattered for us was on the ground. So both times we got out of it scot-free.
Yeah.
The solace and ashes, because we were in two different spaces across the hall from each other.
Yeah.
And I remember that now.
Yeah,
and we had to move. We were forced to move.
Yeah.
But by the time we moved, I wasn't even in the band anymore.
Yeah. I remember because we were right next door to because I want to say like at one point you guys were sharing a room with six or something. I don't know. Maybe that's the beer talking. But that
was probably after I left the band.
Yeah.
And they weren't sure what they were going to do, so they let the space go and moved in with six for a short period of time because they broke up within months.
It was really quick after you left. Yeah. And then but anyway, so yeah, we were right next door to them, and we got really lucky because all of our shit was on the floor, but apparently our room was surrounded by the two support walls in the building, and we're in this basement of a cement fucking building. So we literally didn't get a drop of water in our room, but both rooms on both sides of us had flood water, and then the room across the hall from us also had flood water. So the water that we actually got in the room was from just traveling through the hallway.
Yeah, and I think it was because like the hallways technically had good drainage.
Yeah.
But where it flooded came from like the back parking lot,
right,
through old windows.
Yep. That
were like on this what would be the ceiling of these guys' rehearsal space.
Yep.
And like the water pressure burst and literally just dumped into several people's rooms throughout the building. But anyone who wasn't in those rooms seemed to be okay.
Yeah, we got lucky.
The actual drainage in the rest of the building was fine, but it still ended up getting condemned because they couldn't figure out like cost effectively how to like go in and rip up part of the parking lot and fix those windows, or just lower the entire parking lot low enough. Because remember how it went up?
Yep.
That was the thing.
Yep.
And they were like, they just couldn't figure out, so they just
started over. Yeah.
Or they just condemned it from people using it for that purpose and did it for something else where it didn't matter. You know, like maybe they just like eliminated the bottom floor for shit.
Yeah, I know that they condemned
I don't remember what
they condemned the basement and the first floor for like a little while, but it's open again, so they obviously, but it's not doing rehearsal spaces anymore. Right. It's something else now. I think it's just warehousing now, but yeah, that was the first rehearsal space that I had before I moved to the cities, and then
crazy, dude.
And that was and you know, honestly, it's like I actually still like Glen quite a bit, and the new cooler location is fine, and you know, we just basically said, I packed up all my gear that day and I said we need to move, and you know, and that's just the way it was. I'm like, I'm not gonna have all these years of my life and thousands of dollars in investment. And at that time in my life, it was
that.
Yeah.
And I remember we talked and we were like, we're fucking staying.
Yeah.
Because it's not happening to us.
Yeah.
We don't have any of these secret windows. We were off in these corners.
Yeah.
And we were like, we're good, man. Sucks for them.
Yeah.
But we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Not even trying to be a dick about it, but
no, not at all.
I remember that. I fucking forgot about that.
Yeah, we packed up that day, and I'm like, we are moving the fuck out, and that was literally just situational, and like going, yeah, I can't do this, and that kind of spurred the next 10 years of my life of different rehearsal space stuff and different situations. And when I started this one, I tried to think of all these lovely situations I've been through over the years and go, okay, what do I not want to happen here? Because that was literally it. It's going, well, I'm a musician. Bands want to typically rent from somebody that gets it. It's like my own band's practice there, so obviously I trust it. But yeah, man, just like going, what do musicians want? Parking, a bathroom that works, and the place not be a shit sty. And if you can not have stairs, bonus. So I'm like, this location's perfect.
Right. I mean, that's definitely what they need.
Yeah.
That's what they need, especially if it's on one level. That's a whole nother deal. No stairs, no busted elevators. Shit actually works.
Nope, ground level, man.
That's a big deal.
Yep.
That's a huge deal. What do we want? You know what we really want? And we do kind of need this. We need a spot where we can party by ourselves.
Yeah.
Without weird constraints. So, like, we need an Area 52 that was technically a bunch of rehearsal spots.
Yep.
A cooler sound.
Yep.
Man, you remember we used to throw fucking birthday parties down there?
It was
dude?
a blast.
We would have fucking ragers down there.
Yeah.
Because you can't really pull that shit at City Sound. He shuts that shit down real quick. Chris does it. That's the one drawback of City Sound.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, I'm like,
there's a couple drawbacks of City Sound.
Yeah.
The noises are not, or the rooms are not noise insulated properly, so.
Yeah, I like a lot of bands are like, hey, can we party in our rooms? And I'm like, as long as it doesn't spill out into the fucking main common areas and bother other people who don't want to take part, I really don't care. I'm just like, keep your shit pro and clean up after yourself. I really don't care, and it works out. But I think most of the bands, at least I've only been there, I've only been in that location now for a little less than a year, but a lot of those bands too are, bands that have been around the block, and they kind of like their rehearsal spaces to be two things. It's their place to go let loose and have a good time with their pals, and which hasn't been a whole lot of option with the pandemic going on. So I'm sure that will pick up as things go. And then the other thing is a place where they can make noise and be left the fuck alone. It's really not that hard, It's like, so it's a loud place, man. I go there on some Saturday afternoons and I'm going to go record. And I'm like, man, it's cooking today, man. There's like 12 bands in the space and everyone's making noise, and it's cool to hear that again.
Yeah.
Because when the pandemic started, it's like you might see one or two bands at the same time in the building. It was rare that it was ever that full, but it's starting to feel like bands are getting back together again, which is really refreshing.
Yeah, I bet, dude. I have another question for you, man. How and when and why did you decide to start a record label?
So I didn't actually start the record label. So let me actually explain that a little bit. So so Zero Budget Records has been around for 37, 38 years at this point, which I'm 37 years old. So it's been around as long as I've been alive. It got started in La Crosse, Wisconsin at the warehouse venue owner, his name's Steve, as a vanity label for his band, The Victims, in the 80s. If you can find their stuff, it's actually really good. It's just like,
in case anyone's confused, explain what a vanity label is.
Okay, yeah, good point. So a vanity label is essentially what you do as a band you make a logo and you make a website and you make everything look legit and legal, so that when you're calling up venues, calling up bar owners, calling up promoters, calling up tour agent, like touring people, is you basically go, here's our album. It comes out on Zero Budget Records, which is literally a label that you created by yourself, and or somebody else created by themselves.
Didn't this start in the rap game?
What's that?
Didn't this start in the rap game?
Oh, as far as the vanity label thing goes?
Didn't like Master P or somebody like that do this?
I would bet, given the ingenuity and the entrepreneurship of hip-hop guys, that I bet they were probably the first to do it.
I feel like there's some story I'm like remembering subconsciously. Like this was a concept invented in hip-hop.
Yeah.
And it made a couple, maybe even earlier than Master P. Could have been in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it
definitely would have been the 80s. It's like vanity label's been around since the 80s for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically it was a label that was created to basically legitimize the band, The Victims, so that they could get on tours and things like that. And it ended up working. They ended up opening for a lot of like bigger bands of the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It worked.
Yeah, it worked. So, and it's like the name Zero Budget was not just a fucking fancy name. It was kind of it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke of going, yeah, there's literally zero budget on this fucking record label. It's
That's
the
what
vanity.
I always took from it. I thought it was acknowledging that it was like, no, there's no money here.
Yeah.
It's just a network.
Yep.
It almost, from the outside looking in, it seemed like it was like a coalition.
Yeah.
Like a networking group. Like, it was a real label, but it wasn't like... There's no money. You're not getting signed. You're not getting a deal.
Yep.
That kind of shit. It was like, no, you're going to join the team. We're going to record your record. We're going to make you sound fucking dope as shit.
Yeah.
And because of our network and our coalition, you're going to go out on tour. Because if I remember right, Dying Euphoria signed with zero budget.
Yeah, they did. Yep, and they were on...
After I left.
Yeah, and they were on the...
when they got good.
Yeah.
After I left.
Yeah.
In case anyone's confused.
Well,
it was right after I left.
Yeah. They if it makes you feel any better, you did put the nail in that coffin. I'm pretty sure you did the last show with them. But as far as that whole thing went,
that doesn't make me feel better.
Hey,
that makes me feel
it's
worse.
A jab, dude.
Like
it's
the
good.
last show they played was with me. Like oh my god, dude, that's depressing.
That's funny.
You know what's funny though is I just hit up Jeremy. I just realized they released our record online.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool because it was a part of my life, and I can now show people how bad I was at that instrument. I can prove it easily with Wi-Fi anywhere in the country.
I think you sell yourself a little short.
When you were good, I can be like, listen, not good. Here in your face, not good.
I've got a bunch of those too. Don't worry.
I was a great front man, and I'm not humble about that. But as a singer, no, I was terrible. I had a decent scream, but I still just wasn't that good. However, I also don't feel like we were ever able to capture our sound and our tightness on record. There's a lot of problems with that album. Jason was not on point. Which meant the guitars weren't on point. So the whole thing was a sloppy mess. I feel like, and I just hit Jeremy up about that. I was like, we should fucking re-record that album, dude.
Yeah,
we should re-record that motherfucker because like.
There's always really great songs in that band.
Do justice.
Yeah, there's always really great songs in the band, but and admittedly, I've recorded the band twice too, and admittedly, I don't think the two records that I did with the band necessarily did the band justice. I always thought the band was much better live. They were never able to capture that on record. Personally, Ian, the record they did with Ian, what ended up being the last record from the band, was the closest it got, but it was still. And again, no offense to Ian, because I just said this about myself. It's like it still didn't sound like the band sounded live. Because the band was always such a great live band. And I mean, the band was a great live band in every era of the band. They were always just a fucking blast to watch. But it just never captured that energy on record. It was always just felt like it was... It always felt like it was lacking something.
Like because that wasn't a good performance from any of us on record.
Yeah.
Like... I had just joined the band. I hadn't worked my voice into true shape.
Yep.
We had played a few shows. I blew my voice during recording that, so the entire recording, my screams sound raspy and just weak. It wasn't that same power and just nasty fucking grit I had live.
Yeah.
Just wasn't the same. And yeah, like I said, fucking... And the riffs were built. They were guitar. The whole thing was a guitar player's band.
Oh yeah.
By the time Joe joined the band, Jeremy and Rain started writing riffs and songs, and that's why I asked you about this earlier with "It's Plague of Stars" with the female singer, right?
Right.
Where she's like, I don't want any part of it until you're done.
Right.
That's why I was asking that. It was like, because Jeremy, I can tell you from knowing them and writing with them. That because we had written a bunch of new songs together that never got recorded, and by the time Joe joined the band, they were writing songs in a different way from a different mindset. Like their riffs changed. The way they were writing songs and riffs changed.
It started to sound a little bit more like the era, too.
A little bit, yeah. But the songs got better too. Like the songs were fucking bangers. And I don't know. I was excited where we were going with music, but I don't know if they would ever have achieved that success or level of songwriting if I would have stayed in that band. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like I think they, unlike A Solace and Ashes, they needed me to leave in order to take that next step.
Yeah.
Where Solace and Ashes broke up within 90 days or something
right.
like that.
Right. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy to think about that because I mean, recordings are always like they're a moment in time, right? They're a moment in time of that
and I'm
band.
not bashing on anybody. I'm only using those because those are my personal references that a lot of you know the stories of because we've talked about them in the past on the podcast.
And I was there for a lot of that history too. Like I remember I'm going back to you talk when you're saying you're a front man. I remember that show at the Rock that the first time that I saw you in the band as the singer and going like, kid's a fucking good front man, dude. You know, and I'd seen you in Solace and Ashes, and I'm just like, same dude. Okay, cool. You know, like it took me a minute to put it together. You know, because I was pretty new to the town at that point. You know, and going, oh, okay, yeah, this totally works and that kind of thing. So it was a fun show, and it was really cool. Like you know, being a transplant into the music scene of like seeing what was already kind of happening here before I was actually doing anything really in the music scene. So
you mean where you became based out of here?
Correct. Yeah, when I actually because I was still playing shows.
You said you were a transplant.
Yeah,
and just in case people didn't catch that, if you're tuning in now, because you're originally from La Crosse.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so Duder started Zero Budget as a vanity label.
Yep.
And if we Tarantino this bitch and go to 2008 to 2012, that's when my band signed with you after I left it.
Right.
So it's not my band. It was just a band I was in, Dying Euphoria. That's when they signed with you.
Right.
Danny Z was involved in that era. We don't have to get into Danny Z, but that's the era we're talking about.
Right.
So what takes place between the 80s and Duder starting a vanity label to Dying Euphoria having the best success of their career for real? And we had done some shit already.
Right.
When I was in the band, like we had a renaissance, you know, because I took over for Tad.
Yep.
And they came out swinging. They were supposed to open for Strapping Young Lad. They fucking had like 800 people at their first show and bombed.
Yeah.
And went down to like 50 people.
Right.
And they stayed at that. Tad left the band. I came in. The first show I filled in for, there was like 6 kids at that fucking skate park. It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Fucking somehow, some way, we fucking repay the dues. We fucking re-earn the equity back into the name. We do the head charge thing. You know, we fucking play out of town. We start building this legitimate buzz.
Right.
And then Joe comes in. They sign with you. And they, like this isn't an exaggeration. Like we really were already doing shit.
Right.
So when I say signing with Zero Budget and Joe and then had their greatest success, that's not me just like scoff. That's like that is a big deal what you did with that band on your label. How does that transcend from that crazy ass journey when you start getting involved?
Well, so basically what happened is when Steve started that, you know, and he kept that going, and he kept it going after his band, kind of on a smaller scale, in the sense of, you know, like La Crosse area bands would join the label and to kind of legitimize their record kind of thing. And for a while it was just like Steve's going, anybody who just wants to be on it can just be on it and that kind of thing. Because that was Steve's whole thing is, like me, he wanted to kind of help community and grow community. And that was like his way of putting La Crosse and Wisconsin, you know, bands on the map a little bit, if you will, in his own little way. I would say that it got to the point where, you know, it became more about quantity than quality for sure. But at that point, it just was, you know, he really wasn't paying attention to that. He was running the Warehouse and, you know, doing that venue, which the Warehouse is a great venue. It's still alive today. Shockingly, it's still alive. Especially with the pandemic going on, because it's an all ages, no alcohol music club, which is amazing to think about that lasting for 35 plus years.
They must sell a lot of pizza.
They just have good bands coming through in this tiny little town, and it got people like me really into music. And a lot of really good people into music.
Sell pizza.
And they don't sell pizza. They should. They sell a lot of fucking sodas.
You remember Milltown, Wisconsin?
Oh yeah.
That's how that dude stayed afloat.
Oh yeah, dude. Fucking, I love that.
He let the bands basically take the door.
Yeah. He just sold a lot of pizza.
A lot of fucking pizza,
dude. But we smoked a lot of pot, man. We smoked a lot of pot. We were hungry.
Pizza.
Yeah, it was good pizza.
So that wasn't sarcastic. I was being genuine because usually that's what it is.
Yeah.
Is it's some guy who has a very successful thing going on.
Yeah.
And extra space.
Yeah.
And he loves music.
Yeah.
And especially loves his town.
Yeah.
And wants to give people a leg up. Or he's got some real fucking money. And he wants to fucking party with some fucking real rock stars. We know a lot of guys that fucking bought and started, and we know that's a different podcast. We'll get there on the next one.
That'll be round 2.
Yeah. But this guy sounds like one of those genuine dudes who just kind of got lucky that he actually knows how to run an all ages, no alcohol venue.
Yeah,
it's not some other shtick. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like I could name bands like So Static X played there, and Mudvayne played there, and Everclear played there, and Nine Inch Nails played there, and like
so it's almost like
KMFDM played there. Yeah, it was like there was a lot of like great bands that played in that place.
Survives because of government subsidies.
Yeah,
it's taxpayer dollars in that area that keeps the garage afloat, and donations.
For sure. Which I still think is great. I think that music is a wonderful outlet that I think kids
garage
need.
Garage is legit, dude.
Yeah. I'd play there, and I'd play there if I was asked for sure, and I have played there because I've been asked.
Dude,
but
Wheeler used to. I don't even want to get into it, dude. If you're playing main stage, it's legit.
Yeah. Yep.
Like the garage when we started off, there was 2 tiers.
Yeah.
And you needed to get out of those side rooms as fast as possible.
Oh yeah.
My band played exactly 1 gig in that side room.
Yep.
And we immediately went and started opening for local acts on the main stage.
Yep.
And that main stage was legit. You paid dues there. You learned lessons. You learned how to be a performer, a good performer to many size different crowds. Sometimes there was 100 kids. Sometimes there was 800 kids.
Yeah.
But those kids, no matter how many of them were there, they wanted to like you. So if you sucked, you sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. We always sold a lot of merch at those shows because, kids wanted to be they wanted to like get into your band. And if you weren't an a-hole, they would stick with you. It was pretty cool.
Or if you were good, they'd buy in.
Yep. So we're doing the whole the whole zero budget thing. So it's okay. That happens when we talk. So we get to the point where I'm 16, 17 years old at this point. I'm starting to, I've been in bands for a while. I've been around the block in the music scene of music for a while, both in Wisconsin and otherwise. Like I was traveling even when I was young, like the understanding of you have to leave your hometown if you want to play more often. It's like you can't play the same town over and over and over again. You have to leave if you want to actually like learn how to be successful. So we do regional stuff.
Knowing when you're ready.
Yeah.
That's another big one too. Like that's where that phrase comes from. It's time to take this show on the road. Yeah. Seriously, that's where that comes from. Yeah. Like, okay, you guys are done with this town. Yeah. Now it's time to go to that next level. Yeah.
And it makes you a better musician for a multitude of reasons. But so we do that, and so Steve basically asked me, he just goes, look, you're connected, you kind of have a business understanding, and I'm thinking as like a 16, 17-year-old kid, I'm like, I have a business understanding. At the time, I had no idea how much I knew about like music business just from the experience of like growing up in the warehouse. Like, because I ran sound there, I would book shows there, I would handle the money, make sure that out-of-town bands got paid, all that kind of thing. I would play shows, I would organize like, gear sharing when necessary. I was doing all of those things. So I was effectively tour managing and all of that kind of thing for, these bands and bringing bands in from out of state and giving them a place to play, giving them a place to sleep, all those things. I was like doing all that shit. I didn't realize how much I understood about the music business even at that age. So he just goes, I just want you to just run this because I'm not really doing it any justice. So I said, okay. And for the last, 17, 18 years of my life, I've done that. And I just keep doing it because I love music and, I still do it and I do it to a lesser extent these days. Admittedly, I'm trying to kind of pass it on to the next person right now. I'm in that mode of my life of going, I would like to pass this on to the next generation at this point. Cause I'm in my mid 30s. I want to concentrate on doing my recording and doing my own music at this point. I want to pass on those same values to the next generation and let somebody else kind of take the ship. That's the way that I kind of view zero budget is I want it to go on forever and just have like a new head or whatever or a new kind of
you got to find some kid who's 24 fucking has the balls, the passion.
Yep.
He's not married yet.
Yep.
Doesn't have kids yet.
Yep.
I mean, right already we're talking about 3% of the population.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, it's a small thing, and it's got to be the right person, and I'll find the right person eventually, and that's the whole thing. But, I'm in the point in my life where I'm going, like, it's time to pass it on to the next generation. It's because in the time that I've been doing this, it's like the music world has changed dramatically. The music world has changed dramatically in the last 10 years, take that out to the point. So, yeah, I'm 37, so 20 years I've been doing this. Think about what's happened in the last 5 years, the last 10 years, and then go back 20 years to what's happened in the music industry. It's like things that are the norm now didn't exist back then.
Yeah, and I can't think of a
CDs were new when we were kids.
And I know a bunch of kids that know a lot about a lot, but I don't know any kid that knows enough about everything.
Yeah.
To even recommend somebody, the people that you would need to pass that on to. Ooh.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to basically find an heir.
Yeah.
And whether he knows it or not, groom him.
Yeah.
And just give it to him one day.
Yeah.
Like some kid who wants a shot, deserves a shot, has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he's got all the fucking...
He's got the passion. You can learn everything else.
He's got all the fucking tools for the making.
Yeah.
And you fucking teach him what's up. And then, 5 years later, you're like, dude, this is all yours.
Yeah.
Like 3 years from now, I'm literally just done.
Yeah.
And it's all yours. You can just have it because that's how it was given to me, and you got to pay it forward.
Yep.
Start that tradition. That'd be fucking dope, bro.
Yeah, that's the eventual goal, and I know it's like right now it's basically just a team of people running things. It's I'm definitely still very heavily involved, but it's as a group right now we're kind of running it not because I'm less interested, it's just because I know my limits at this point in my life. And I will tell you, the whole getting sick thing last year taught me a lot about, priorities, and kind of went, what I really liked about the pandemic? Seeing my wife a lot. That was really nice. It's we work opposite schedules, and we have for years, and we didn't kill each other during the pandemic. So I guess she's going to stick around. So we're good. Right. It's like, but we've been together for 13, 14 years at this point. So I'm like, I don't think she's going anywhere.
Well, my wife and I were in the exact opposite boat, right?
Yeah.
So we had just gotten married and already spent a year or two with a lot of time together because it was that's what you do the first 2 years being married.
Right.
And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have a choice. And surprisingly, we had no issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think our marriage actually got stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, I think it was crazy because, like, I don't even know how to explain that. I have to think more about that before I even try to spit that out of my mouth. But, yeah, because I've been married now, I think it's 4 years. Fuck, I'm already losing track because we've been together for a while, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I can tell you when my wife and I met, and then I need to do the math.
Yeah.
Like, we met the night before my 31st birthday.
Yeah.
That's what I can tell you.
Yeah.
So then I need to do the math and go.
And go backwards.
Wait, when did we get married? Like, I think we got married in 2018.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 27. I don't fucking remember. I can tell you my wedding anniversary.
Right.
But I can't
Which is all the ladies care about anyway,
But I legitimately can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018. I'd have to look at my Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the
I'm weird. I'm weird like that, dude.
No, I don't my wife regularly corrects me when I'm like, how long have we been together? And she's like 13 years or whatever the number is, that at that moment she knows down to the date. But
no, I remember our first date because it was the night before my birthday.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about the lovely world of that too, like pre-marriage, and it's just like there's all these milestones in my life of going like, okay, when did I start playing guitar? Okay, when was my first band? When was the first like record release that I had? And when was like the first like big show I played? And when did I move to the Minneapolis? When did I open my own studio? All those things. And when I got married, it's like literally like all the things in my life that I just described as big milestone moments all had to do with music other than my marriage, and that's been the wonderful thing about music for me is it's literally been that way. I can't imagine my life without music. And that's why I'm so into it still. And just like recording and doing music myself is it's still all these years later, fucking, it moves me. Yeah. And I just want to, I really enjoy watching that happen for other people. And it's just really cool to be like a part of their growth, even if it's in a really small way of just going like, I helped this band, I recorded this band's like early demo, or I gave them their first like recording to help them out, or I taught them the first time like how to handle their merch or something like that. It's just dumb little shit like that I just really enjoy doing. So I don't know. Music rules. It's fun. I love it.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man. I feel you. Shout out to Brad. He says one of your most underrated traits, Will, is giving young musicians the confidence to elevate to the next level. You exude the comfort factor in the studio.
That's awfully kind of you. Thank you very much. I try.
Yeah, no, it's a good compliment. What do you got coming up for shows? You got Coffin Rights and Plague of Stars. Those are the two projects you're pushing right now.
Right.
And you guys can follow those on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, correct?
Correct,
Just Coffin Rights, at
Yep, at Coffin Rights, at Plague of Stars, and then, the old Facebook / band name, all that good shit. We got a bunch of shows coming up, which is fucking great to finally say that out loud. It's been a long time since I've been able to say that, Plague of Stars has one show that's officially announced. There's more to come, but we're opening up for Unleash the Archers September 1st here in Minneapolis at the old Caboose.
When is that?
It's Wednesday, September 1st.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, pretty cool show. We're all big Unleash the Archers fans. Actually, Tom from Coffin Rights is one of his favorite bands. He goes, I'm really excited that you're going to play that show. I'm really pissed off that you're not doing it with Coffin Rights. But I'm like, if you know Unleash the Archers, you would understand. You would understand why Plague of Stars is on that bill.
That's how it works, though. In the industry, the bands you're a fan of, your other friends who don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Not in your case.
Yeah.
But that's how they get to open for the band that you love.
Yeah, exactly. That's the wonderful world of music. Sometimes it's luck of the draw,
baby.
Yep, get used to it. You're gonna have to take a lot of shit. So Plague of Stars is opening that show. That's gonna be a lot of fun. There'll be more shows coming. And Coffin Rights has several on the books. 2 of them are announced, so I'll keep the other ones at bay. We're gonna be opening up.
You guys can follow him to get these updates.
Yep. Please do. Tell us we suck. Whatever you want to do. Buy our records. Don't buy our records. Pay what you want. Just come hang out. You
guys are good, dude.
Yeah, we try.
You guys are good, man.
But we have the
like any band you're in, it's not gonna be bad. Like it's gonna be very, very good because you're in it. You're one of those dudes where it's like, well, if Will's in it, it's gonna be good. Like
I surround myself with good musicians, so I try.
Like it or not, it's up to them. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
But we're not going to dispute the validity of talent that the band is putting out. We're not going to do that.
Well, I appreciate that.
You've earned that respect. You don't even have to appreciate it. You've earned that. That's not even me complimenting you. That's an observational fact.
I still appreciate the observational fact. Fuck
you, Will.
Fuck you, man. No, I'm like, I learned to be gracious a long time ago.
No,
I'm like appreciate when people like,
because compliments are few and far between.
Yeah, especially in the music world, most people don't give a fuck. The musicians all give a fuck, but let's face it, it's not everybody is actually gracious in the industry, and it's kind of I kind of said, you know what, I'm just gonna fucking be nice and I'm not gonna suck anybody's dick or anything like that. I'm not gonna like blow smoke up anybody's ass, but I am gonna be like, you know what? I'm just going to be nice and I'm going to be honest, and that goes a long way. I can still be honest without, being a dick. So
I've been trying to work on that for a while. I think I'm getting better at it, but
You've definitely gotten better at it over the years, for sure. I have too. I've said a lot of things that I'm not proud of.
I got a long way to go still, but we all grow.
Yeah, it's part of this thing called life. Yeah, I will tell everybody who's, it's like suddenly you turn 30s and you turn 30 and your world perspective does change a little bit. You certainly start to kind of go like, man, I was an asshole. but it is what it is.
It's you. And for me specifically, it was when somebody started treating me the way I remember treating somebody else in the past.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my God, is this how that person felt? I was like, that sucks. Oh my God, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that again. But it's like one by one, I've had to learn those lessons since I've been 26, 27.
Yeah.
It's literally been over 10 years.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. Like, and I'm still learning those lessons. I still have a long way to go, but you know, that's all of our journey, man. That's what everybody's doing. And
right.
You know, I dig what you're doing over there, man. I hope to make it over there soon.
Yeah, please come over.
I want to see what you got going on. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a real honor, dude. 1459 Studios MPLS.com. If people want to join the waiting list for a rehearsal space,
yep.
They can also contact you there about studio time for
Absolutely.
recording. You also do some videos.
Yep.
If bands want to do a quick live performance video, it's not like a highly produced and edited. I mean, you do some camera cuts and shit, but
yeah,
it's not like what who's the fuck I was talking about him a few months ago, A440.
Yeah,
it's a highly produced.
Yep.
It's not that. It's a quick fucking.
Yeah, I refer to it as I call it a content builder. You know, it's like, as much as I hate to admit that, you know, how important social media is to bands and music these days.
Dope.
Yeah, it's like, if the band's good, the band will sound good.
Well, and they all sound decent because you're doing it, but I mean, like, their performance, like Impaler. Right. Again, we referred to this earlier, and I'll just mention it briefly. Impaler has the experience where you can tell in that video they have played hundreds of shows on tiny stages.
Oh, yeah.
And they understand how to be in a tight space like that and absolutely dominate.
Right.
And then there's other bands where I've seen them in there and they sound fine.
Right.
But I can tell in their performance in the video that they are almost like at a rehearsal.
Right. Right.
And it was just a different vibe. So again, it's like whatever you bring to the table is what you're going to be able to deliver on.
Exactly.
It's dope. I think it's really cool what you guys are doing out there, man. And I appreciate you coming on, dude. And fucking, I hope we got to plug your stuff enough. And I hope you had fun. And I'd love to do this again with you, man.
Let's do it again in 6 months. We'll do version 2.0.
Sounds good, brother.
Awesome, brother.
I love it, man.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, guys. Make sure that if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe, please. We're still on that grind to 1,000 subs. And if you haven't, go to patreon.com/Jared Singer Live. You can do a one-time donation, or you can join for $3, $6, or $10 a month, or I don't fucking remember what the prices are anymore. But yeah, anyways, go there, do that stuff. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Love you.
Thanks, everybody.